truth in journalism, where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative hid the truth of mass suffering, injustice, and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Hey there, Jordan Sheridan, live on a Sunday, March 22nd, 2020. Status Coup in the hizzy. Got my hoodie up for those of you who want to purchase this at the Status Coup merchandise store. Go to statuscoup.com, click on store, get your swag in these trying times. Hope everybody is okay, feeling okay. I know, obviously, coronavirus, the numbers are going up throughout the country. So I worry about my audience as well as all you wonderful progressives out there. Not just progressives. We care about conservative life here as well on Status Coup. Lot to talk about, and I don't know how long we're going to go today. I have a special guest. I'm not sure if technology is going to work with us, but we hope. Introducing special guest. Oh, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. There you are. Let's see. Can everybody hear you? Jen, start talking.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. We've been desperately trying to get this tech working.
Keep talking.
Still talking. We really hope all of you are feeling well, that your families are feeling well. There's a lot of scary stuff going on out there, and I think we can all band together here at Status Coup and keep each other happy and going here in this time of quarantine.
Yes. They're saying choppy video, so let me see. Hold on. Your video looks good to me. Yeah, the feed is a little choppy. I think it's because of probably having Skype up and other things. Let me remove some stuff from my feed here. Work with us, people, just for 1 second.
We'll get it.
222. If only we had, CNN's Cisco satellite that they're using. Andy Cooper from his living room. 1 second.
I was reading about Anderson and the fortune he's going to get from his late mother. Sounds nice.
Andy, who was with interned at the CIA. A lot of people don't know that.
CIA Cooper.
Hold on. Bernie. Just trying to remove stuff from my thing. Okay. 1 second, folks. Bear with me.
We'll get it, guys.
We're a little behind in the tech. All right. So, I think that should make it a little better. We'll see. So, let me refresh my page. All right. So, I want to start with the latest on the coronavirus before we get to the insane media stories on Bernie Sanders' campaign, which I don't even know where to start on this New York Times piece. It's truly, truly astounding. Let me minimize your screen, Jen, because you're looking very massive right now. Not you, the screen. Hold on.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yes. So let me play this clip. The screen's going to go black for a second as I give you an update on the latest corona numbers. Excuse me. Technology. All right.
100,000 confirmed cases worldwide and more than 13,000 deaths from coronavirus. And in the U.S., there are now over 26,000 cases and at least 340 have died. New York, the city that never sleeps, has gone quiet. Now the epicenter of this crisis with more than 12,000 confirmed cases, one of at least 5 states asking residents to stay at home. Those restrictions affecting more than 20% of the country's population. Amid growing economic uncertainty, the Senate is expected to finalize a deal on economic.
So I don't know if, Jen, you probably couldn't have hear any of that, but basically there is now been more than 13,000 deaths, 26,000 cases, and at least 340 dead in the United States. So 13,000 deaths globally, over 300 dead in the United States. And basically, they say 20% of the U.S. population has been affected so far. And obviously, multiple governors, California, New York, Illinois, which I'm going to get to, is now ordering a variation of the word shelter in place, stay at home. I think we are heading close to a national quarantine, which some people attack me for, saying, you know, civil liberties, we don't want Big Brother, all these things. But I think that if we don't act very, very quickly, we are headed towards Italy territory. I will remind the audience, we got 350 people watching. We need every single one of you. Press that like button. It's right under the live stream. We got 350 people watching. 190 of you have pressed that like button. Sorry, there's a little bit of a lag. We'll probably have Jenn on for the first segment, just so we could try out this tech. Then we'll graciously get rid of her to help with the bandwidth a little bit, because I think it's a Skype issue. And then off camera, Colin, myself, and Jenn will work with the tech to see how we could make this a little bit smoother. But we do want Jenn on for this first part, so sorry for the lag and buffering and all that. But make sure you press that like button. Very, very important. Jenn, I said on Friday, I think we need to shut down the whole country. Some in the audience did not like that, thinking that I was becoming a little Big Brother, government takeover. It's inflated. What do you think?
I think that I want to talk a little bit about like the stages of grief.
See, this is what happens when you try new tech. This is what happens when you try new tech on Status Coup. You get buffering and a whole lot of craziness. Let me know if you could see me a little bit better. Hold on. Hold on, Jen. I want to see if the stream is a little bit better now that I got rid of you graciously. Hold on. I think, yeah, it's a lot better. It's definitely a bandwidth issue. All right, Jen.
Maybe next time we'll have to start. We'll try Zoom or something, or Colin will help us.
Yeah. We'll work with. We'll figure out the tech. But talk about what you were saying.
Yeah, so I was listening to actually the highly controversial podcast Red Scare with Dasha Nekrasova, and she was just mentioning that with dealing with coronavirus, we are all kind of going through the 5 stages of denial, which I have now looked up, or the 5 stages of grief, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So I think when you were, and apologies if this is a repeat, I don't know when my audio cut out, but a lot of people, when you said everyone needs to stay home, we're kind of in denial, or not kind of, but we're in full denial. You know, it's not that bad. Young people aren't really getting sick, and we don't need to go to such extreme measures. But now it's clear, and as people go to, the anger stage, then bargaining, then depression, which I was in for quite a bit about this, and then acceptance, we realize, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to social distance ourselves. We need to isolate. We need to all be basically under a quarantine. And it's difficult for a lot of workers out there. My husband's a firefighter. He can't not go to work. He's a first responder. But to make those people safe, and now we know that 50 New York City police officers have tested positive for coronavirus. We need to keep people safe that have to be out there. So for people who don't have to be out there, everyone needs to stay home. So Jordan, you were completely correct. And I think it was pretty smart of Dasha talking about the stages of grief, because I really think that is what a lot of people are going through. So that depression stage is present for a lot of us, and it's a hard thing. It's an incredibly different way of living. This changes the way Americans live, but we don't want to become a repeat of Italy. We have our president who was in denial and still is about the severity of this, and we have Pence and Fauci trying to correct him live on his press conferences, which is really scary to see. He doesn't know what's going on. So it all comes down to, we all have to do what we now know is best, young, old, everybody, because the young people are getting it. The young people are being more affected now that we have more data coming in, and we all need to keep each other safe. We have a social contract to keep people safe, the elderly, the first responders, the medical profession. So yeah, everybody needs to just stay in. It's really, really hard. We're all in this together, and we will get through it. We don't know what it will look like coming out the other side, that's for sure.
And I'm going to have you call back when I get to Bernie and Biden. Can you have Colin or you email me an image of you so I could show something other than my phone to the microphone when you're speaking?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye.
So I also think that what a lot of people don't realize, well, you might realize it, but Italy is 60 million people. America is 330 million people. Italy didn't act quick enough, and the death rate there is just insane. And we are not acting quick enough. So you do the math. If Italy, it's not like the virus is more powerful in Italy but less powerful in America. It just hasn't reached peak levels like you see in Italy. So this is not really a matter of your political ideology. If you're libertarian, if you believe the government, you fear the government acting too much and being overbearing or trampling on your constitutional rights. I mean, this is about preserving life. And that's why I think we need a nationwide quarantine. I don't think 15 days is enough. This is a highly contagious illness, and we do not have enough hospital beds, as we're seeing. I just want to show you the picture in New York City, because New York State has over half of the cases are in New York State, where I am right now. But New York City is just a mess right now. The number of corona cases in New York surged by more than 4,500 on Saturday, jolting the statewide number of infected past 11,600 on the eve of an unprecedented lockdown from Brooklyn to Buffalo aimed at containing the deadly bug. I don't know why they call it a bug. It's really not a bug. New York City, which remained the epicenter of the nation's COVID-19 crisis, accounted for the bulk of the alarming increase. More than 2,400 new cases were reported in the Big Apple, raising the total number of sick to 8,115, city officials said. The virus killed at least 15 more people in the city on Saturday, officials said, bringing the death toll to 60 in the city. The day before, COVID-19 claimed 14 lives between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., a troubling rate of more than 1 an hour. Meanwhile, in New York City, people are still out at the park, not social distancing, and it's just going to get a lot worse. It's going to get a lot worse if people don't take this seriously. So we'll have more about, the latest numbers and all that with the coronavirus. Now I want to get a little bit into the politics. Remember, we got 440 people are watching right now. I need every one of you to press that like button. We got 440 people watching. 340 of you have pressed that like button. I need another over 100 more of you. Press the like button. It's a thumbs up button right under the live stream. It makes a huge, huge difference. As a reminder, folks, Status Coup might not be traveling right now because obviously we got to protect our health also, but we are still growing. We are currently 138, count them, 138 Status Coup members away from hitting that 2,000 member mark. Jenn and I are going to have another members call this week. So if you become a member today, statuscoup.com/join, you could join us on our members call. And I am trying not to jinx this. So I'm going to be very vague. But Status Coup, very, very soon, when I say very, very soon, I mean very, very soon, is going to be dropping a bomb. Not a COVID bomb, but a journalistic bomb. I'm going to leave it at that. But for those of you who have been waiting for a certain story of ours to come out, Status Coup is on the verge very soon of dropping a journalistic bomb. So we hope when we drop that bomb, there's going to be a lot more members so we could tell you the story behind the story. Dun, dun, dun. I'm not going to say anything else because Jenn will, really, really cut my throat. But Jenn and I are very, very, very close. Very close to publishing a major, major story that we've been working on probably for 6 months. That's part of why we wanted her to Skype in so we could tell you a little bit more about that. But I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to jinx it at the last moment. So statuscoup.com/join. Every new member. For every new member, an angel gets their wings, and I will give you a shout out right here live.
I'll cheer for you.
As will my lovely girlfriend Anat. So I want to also show you our Congress, which, not surprisingly, is doing jack shit other than trying to protect their donors. As Matt Stoller, follow him on Twitter, he's fantastic, has been tweeting about, this is a corporate coup. Just take this fucking bill down. It's useless except for big business. The bill he's talking about that McDonald, Pelosi, Mnuchin are all meeting about right now. Republicans are refusing to add strong worker protections. Shocker. The language says corporations must keep employees, quote, to the extent possible. You know what that reminds me of? To the extent possible? You ever have, you get a job and at the end of the job, it has that little sentence like, and other duties as needed, which means like we could have you do a completely different job that's not within your job description as needed. So when Mitch McConnell, and Pelosi will agree to this because she's spineless, says to the extent possible, it means none of your jobs will be protected by this bill. Democrats offered loan forgiveness if 90+% of employees were retained. How about 100% of employees are retained? The Mnuchin bailout fund has virtually no restraints. It's all at the discretion of the Treasury Secretary. Trump administration could give dollars to Trump properties, I'm sure. Republicans are refusing to increase dollars for hospitals, but have increased corporate bailout fund to $500 billion. This doesn't include dollars for the airlines. Very weak stock buyback restrictions that could be waived by the Treasury Secretary, Mnuchin. Only a 2-year limit on increasing executive compensation, and only giving loans to airlines, which will result in tens of thousands of layoffs. Unions want grants. So, what's amazing about this? What's amazing about this bill, which I promise you, Pelosi will agree pretty much to most of this bill. What's amazing about this? Do you hear anything about the Democrats pushing for direct monthly cash payments? Do you hear anything about mortgage freeze on mortgages, freeze on car payments, freeze on electric bills, freeze on utilities, freeze on student loans? I don't hear anything in there. Thank you, Seth Peterson, $55 in the super chat. I honestly don't know what I would do without outlets like Status Coup, who are as disgusted in this corrupt system as a lot of us are. I deeply appreciate your commitment to the truth and honest journalism. Please be safe all, in solidarity. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And by the way, Seth, God bless you. And God bless, we missed a couple other super chats. Status Coup is affected just like everybody else. Obviously, we can, we could go live every day and still report, but we can't travel. So, it sucks. But, for example, Jamal, who we love, who's been doing great camera work for us, we don't have anything for him to shoot. I wish we had the money just to pay him anyway, but we don't. So, there's no events to cover. You know what I mean? There's no campaign events. There's no other events. We can't go. There's nothing to cover in New York. So, unfortunately, we're going to pay him as, we might have him do a promo video here and there. But for now, we don't have the money to there's nothing to cover, meaning we can't afford to keep cameraman on indefinitely. So Status Coup is feeling it too. I mean, we were growing and growing and growing and had such momentum, and it's kind of tapered off a little bit. And that's why we really appreciate you guys continuing to contribute in the super chat. If you can become a member, sign up, because honestly, we totally get if our membership growth slows down. A lot of you are worried about paying your rent right now, worried about paying your mortgage, worried about paying your student loans. I know I'm talking against myself. Obviously, I want as many signups as possible, but we live in the real world. We know that we're going to get slower member growth, but hopefully, if you're in a little bit of a better position, whatever the amount is, you could drop it in the super chat or sign up as a Status Coup member. Every new member counts. Every new member counts. So, basically, all of these corporations, I saw yesterday, I tweeted about it. Literally, these senators are having to urge. Thank you, Sarah Brennan, $10 in the super chat. Thanks for all you do, Jordan. We love you, Teddy and Lelouch. Miss the puppies, although I've never met them. Thank you, Sarah. Wonderful woman down there in D.C. We have, the senators are urging Jeff Bezos to give his workers paid sick leave. Let that sink in for a second. Jeff Bezos, who last year was making $60,000 every minute. Every minute, Jeff Bezos was making $60,000 last year. I think per day, when you factor in stocks, he was making over $200,000 a year. Jeff Bezos has to be convinced to pay his workers sick pay. I want to show you this video from a McDonald's worker. Credit to the New York Times for actually showing the plight of the workers. Take a look at this.
I've worked at McDonald's for over 10 years. I'm that face that you see that serves you your hash brown for breakfast, maybe a quarter pounder for lunch, and they even gave you a McFlurry to top off your dinner menu. So I ask you, if I caught the coronavirus, would you want me making your next meal? There are 500,000 McDonald's workers just like me that have to go to work whether sick or well because we have no paid sick leave. I currently make $11.50. I live paycheck to paycheck. The sick day for me is lost wages. I literally have to be damn near on my deathbed to take a full-blown sick day. The missed check is the difference between me having a roof over me and my family's head versus us being homeless.
Welcome to McDonald's. May I take your order?
McDonald's is one of the largest employers in the world. There are hundreds of thousands of McDonald's workers that touch millions of customers' food each day.
There is nothing so clean as my burger machine.
The CDC found that 20% of food service workers go to work even exhibiting signs of vomiting or diarrhea. And I should know, I'm one of those workers. Last week, I was under the weather. I was sick to the point where I had to leave the grill to go to the restroom, and I wound up vomiting. And I could have been sent home with paid sick leave and not have to worry about coming to work sick because I don't have to worry about how my bills are going to get covered for the days that I missed.
Hello, McFamily.
Last week, McDonald's did roll out a coronavirus plan stating that anybody that's quarantined will be paid.
Protecting the well-being of our people and our customers is our #1 priority.
But you guys, don't be fooled. That's only for corporate-owned McDonald's. But 95% of McDonald's are franchise stores, including my store. So that does not benefit us whatsoever.
Today, the Senate has taken up coronavirus legislation.
This week, the government passed a law that enables people that have the coronavirus to get paid time off.
2 weeks of paid sick leave.
The bill does have an exemption for businesses with 500 employees.
Depending on how you look at it, it only covers about 20% of workers.
Republicans made it so that doesn't apply to big businesses, such as McDonald's. And listen closely, that's only with the coronavirus. What about the flu? What about the next outbreak? What then? McDonald's has the power to make it so anybody in a McDonald's uniform that wears the McDonald's logo, like I do, could be provided with paid sick leave, especially during this critical time. Companies can change this. Since this coronavirus pandemic, Olive Garden has given their employees paid sick leave, not just during this time, but for good. So we know that McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Subway, they can all do it as well, but they just have chosen not to. McDonald's could provide paid sick leave for hundreds of thousands of its workers right now, here today. Well, with that being said, off to work I go. Y'all have a blessed day.
The Fuck Columbus poster is back, although my head is blocking. Let me move. Oh, there you go. So that worker, by the way, took great risk to do that video. I hope their job is protected. Thank you, Wolfpack, $4.99 in the super chat. We had 11 cases, 1 death in my area of Monterey County. How is your hospital doing in your area? Not so good. Not so good in New York City, unfortunately. Carol Edwards, $50. Thank you so much for your continued generosity. Off topic, what happened to the Fuck Columbus poster? Oh, I'm pretty much blocking it. Well, what happened, Carol, is my girlfriend and I just moved in to our new apartment in a pandemic. So we've been slowly putting things together. So I tried to put my green screen up behind me before the live stream. So I moved the Columbus poster because the green screen would block it. But then I'm missing a cord to hook up the camera and the green screen. So it's a work in progress. But the Columbus is back during that. We put it back during that video. So what's amazing, and by the way, I have no idea if this Fuck Columbus is just immediately getting us demonetized from YouTube, because just the visual might be getting us demonetized. So feel free to, make up for that right there in the super chat. Thank you, Carol, for your support. So in America, in the United Corporations of America, if Bernie Sanders was still running an aggressive presidential campaign, which it looks like he's not, and we're going to get to that, I get a question. What is Joe Biden going to do for that McDonald's worker after this pandemic goes away? Because we're going to have, whether it's another health pandemic, whether it's when the inferno comes to your neck of the woods, the climate crisis, climate refugees, we're going to have situations in the next 5 to 10 years, whether it's health, whether it's climate change, whatever, where people can't work. What is Joe Biden going to do for those people? What is President Trump going to do for those people? If Bernie was still running an aggressive presidential campaign, the opportunities are endless right now to actually put the policies and the things that you've been pushing for 5 years, to put them out there in a situation where everybody now is aware. Everybody now is feeling it. Everybody now, maybe people before, even older people who never really thought that much about, well, why don't we have paid sick leave? Why isn't my Social Security expanded during a pandemic? Why isn't there a national law to freeze mortgages, student loans, utility bills, rent, all those things in the case that the nation has to be shut down? This right now is an opportunity, if Bernie wanted to actually go on offense, that could actually, because the primary is not over, win him a lot of states. But as we're going to see, he refuses to do that. And I'm just going to be real. He refuses to do that. Because Joe Biden doesn't have an answer for these things. He's going to say, well, it's an emergency now, so we'll take care of it. Well, what about the day-to-day emergency that McDonald's worker is dealing with? When the pandemic is gone and that McDonald worker is nauseous, or that McDonald worker is a diabetic and forgets his insulin pen, or that McDonald's worker gets cancer, or that McDonald's worker has the flu. It's unbelievable. And make sure you press that like button. Let's keep it going. But that's not all, folks. That's not all. In addition to this absurd bailout package, which is another corporate bailout, this story is nauseating too. A U.S. woman gets coronavirus treatment bill, almost $35,000. Wait, Joe, I thought you said it's all paid for. A woman in the United States says she was billed almost $35,000 after being tested and treated for the coronavirus, Time magazine reports. When Danny Ascani first came down with the symptoms of the virus, shortness of breath, a fever, a cold, a cough, and migraines, she was told by a doctor, go to the emergency room. There, she was told she had pneumonia and could go home. She visited the emergency room 2 more times as her symptoms persisted and worsened before she was finally tested for the coronavirus. 3 days later, her results showed she had COVID-19. And welcome new Status Coup member, Killa Bolin! We are now at 1,863 Status Coup members. Let's keep getting them to sign up, folks. Ooh, what if we get to 1,900 today? If we get to 1,900, I don't know. Might have to surprise the audience with something. I don't know. We'll just have to think of something. It'll be epic, though. 1,863, that would be 137 members away from 1,900. Keep signing up, $5 a month. So first she was told, just go home, you have pneumonia, which I fear a lot of people have been told that, wrongly not diagnosed with COVID-19. Remember, most places don't have the testing. The tests and her treatment for the viral illness all took place while Ascani was uninsured, and before President Trump signed congressional measures ensuring free diagnostic testing, after she got a bill for almost $35,000. Unbelievable. I was pretty sticker shocked. I personally don't know anybody who has that kind of money. Ascani was between jobs and planning to move and start a new role in Washington, D.C. when she was diagnosed with the virus, and has since applied for Medicaid in the hope it can retroactively cover her bill. She is now tested negative for COVID-19, but is still taking precautions to recover and isolate. So here's the deal, folks. Here's the deal. Oh my God, I sound like Joe Biden. Here's the deal, folks. Because Danny's story went national, she'll probably have her bill erased. Thank you, Luis Brooks, $20. Can we find time to go after Ajit Pai for blocking net neutrality? This situation will crash the internet, and folks in rural places will continue to be cut off. For those who could telework, what happens then? Great point. Jen, could you write that down, please? We'll talk about that. And Carol Edwards, another $50. Swear, poster jar. Carol, God bless you. We really appreciate you. Thank you. And I will be dropping that F-bomb to your heart's desire. Just keep those funds coming. Beta virus, $2. Skype is P2P. Use Discord, uses less bandwidth. Yeah, we're going to talk to Colin after this. You know, baby steps here at Status Coup. And sorry, Jen, that we had to kick you off. I hope you understand. So what's amazing to me, Danny will probably have her costs erased because she made national headlines. And the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, and the media will say, oh, that was a mistake, no problem. But how many people like Danny aren't going to have that $34,000, almost $35,000 erased because they didn't get a national story in Time magazine? How many people went to go get tested for coronavirus, having all the symptoms, and they told them it's not coronavirus, you have the flu. Sorry, because it's not coronavirus, here's your bill. I promise you there's going to be a lot of cases like that. And because Joe Biden and the Republicans and the Democratic Party, they classify coronavirus as an emergency that we should pay for all of it, but not if you get breast cancer as an emergency, not if you desperately need insulin but have to ration it as an emergency, not if you are poisoned in Flint. They don't have Medicare for all in Flint. California's had water contamination. Other Native Americans who have cancers because of the mining that has gone on around their reservations, the drilling that has gone on around their reservations, the water contamination. Not an emergency for them, according to the federal government. So what this pandemic is showing is we already have a pandemic. It's called the United Corporations of America, and you're all at risk. You're all at risk. Honestly, I think Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib has come up with the best plan. And, the Republicans will freak out. She's an anti-Semite. She's this, she's that. She's not. I think this plan is even better than Bernie's plan. And Bernie's plan is good. And by the way, we're about to get to Bernie, and I don't want to get copyrighted here. I'm not going to sing "Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego," but where in the world is Joe Biden?
I just put that in the chat.
Oh, you did? No, I didn't see that.
Oh my God,
we think alike. Where in the world is Joe Biden? I'd like to know. But Rashida Tlaib says, mint the fucking coin. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib released a sweeping proposal to deal with the economic turmoil caused by the novel coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic, and ensuing panic. The plan in basic form would, quote, immediately provide a U.S. debit card preloaded with $2,000 to every person in America. Each card would be recharged with $1,000 monthly until 1 year after the end of the coronavirus crisis, according to a copy of the legislation. The funds would be distributed in the following way. The prepaid cards would be distributed as U.S. debit cards and would be administered by the U.S. Treasury's Bureau of the Fiscal Service. These prepaid digital cash cards could be used to withdraw physical currency at regular ATMs or FDIC-insured banks or credit unions, or make payments at point-of-sale terminals as well as online. In addition, these cards could be topped up with additional funds as needed during and after the crisis. All cardholders and interchange fees associated with use of distributed cards would be waived for the duration of the coronavirus crisis. The program would establish a common database of recipients identified by name and or, where available, employer identification numbers. Identifying information would not be shared with any other federal, state, or local agency. That one, I don't know. Sounds like an opportunity for the NSA to spy on you. But putting that part worries me. But everything else, I think, is great. One of the more interesting aspects of the proposed quick fix law is the price tag for the massive expenditure. It's actually deficit neutral. Quote, this automatic boost to Communities Act would be a money-financed fiscal program for which no additional U.S. debt would be issued, Tlaib's novel piece of legislation notes. Instead, the program would be funded directly from the Treasury, using its legal authority to create money via coin signerage, which is a statutory delegation of Congress's constitutional power of the purse, which in English just means what Ben Bernanke has said over and over. Yeah, we could just create the money. You just move a decimal in a computer system, which is what advocates of modern monetary theory have been screaming about forever. Here are the mechanics of how the plan would pay for itself. The Treasury Secretary would direct the U.S. Mint to issue 2 1 trillion platinum coins under the legal authority provided by 31 U.S.C. blah, 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 blah. Congress would direct the Federal Reserve to purchase the newly issued coins at full face value. The Federal Reserve would complete the purchase by crediting the U.S. Mint's account at the Fed with $2 trillion in reserves. The Fed would retain ownership over the 2 $1 trillion coins permanently in order to ensure its own balance sheets remain fully capitalized by the Treasury. The Treasury Secretary would sweep the newly created reserve funds from the Mint's account into the regular Treasury general account, and the Treasury would make the funds available to the Bureau of the Fiscal Service to disperse to every person in America in the form of prepaid U.S. debit cards. Tlaib's proposal was instantly praised by advocates of cash stimulus, both for its thoroughness in providing stimulus payments to Americans amidst the nation's worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, and for its ingenuity in raising the funds. Quote, "This is the kind of break-the-glass thinking we need to address the scale of the crisis," tweeted enamored Bloomberg business editor Joe Weisenthal. Or Michael Bloomberg could just pay for all this. That would be good, too. Hats off to the Congresswoman Tlaib for thinking huge in terms of getting money into people's hands and not listening to the but how will we pay for it crowd. Let's mint that fucking coin already. Whilst Weisenthal's fulsome post praising the idea resulted in the hashtag MTFC to trend on Saturday. So, what I think, there's 2 things about this. And by the way, we got over 700 people watching right now. 620 of you have pressed that like button. I need every one of you to press that like button. Keep pressing that like button. Thank you for the super chat. Luis Brooks, $5. Our undocumented brothers and sisters have to be supported too, or it's all for naught. Couldn't agree more. I could not agree more with that. Fox News will get its head on fire, but that would be great too. Hold on. D Munch, $1.99. FYI, didn't get the text alert until 1:15 p.m. Eastern. Yes, we were delayed sending it. I'm having trouble figuring out. Yes, we had a delay sending it because Jenn was on, but it's out now. Pizerion, $10. Work for a subcontractor for Dish Network, and I was basically told if I explicitly called off because I'm uncomfortable going out to work in a pandemic, I'd be forfeiting that pay coming from Trump. Send us your story, info@statuscoup.com. By the way, folks, we are soliciting coronavirus stories. We've already interviewed 4 viewers on their stories. We don't want only to tell the stories of people that are sick. We want to tell the stories of people being threatened with getting fired if they don't come into work. We want to tell the stories about people that might miss their mortgage payment, might miss their rent payment, might are deathly afraid of getting their children sick. We want to tell the story of average working people. So email us, info@statuscoup.com. We certainly can't respond to everybody. We certainly can't interview everybody, but we're going to try our best to give as many of you voice because we won't be seeing your stories on CNN, that's for sure. So, to me, this is a great plan, but obviously, in the United Corporations, this plan will never actually happen, and I'll tell you why. And remember, keep signing up. We already got 1 new member. I hope we could get some more new members, statuscoup.com/join. By the way, I don't think I told you, but we also have an interview with the primary opponent to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Jenn Pearlman, running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz in South Florida. So we spoke with her the other day about what's going on in Florida. You see all these people hanging out at the beach like there's not a deadly virus going around. And also, what do you do if you're a congressional candidate right now when you can't campaign? So we'll be showing that in a little bit. She is a great, great candidate running against the corrupt Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So why this plan won't happen, unfortunately? Because there's no money in the banks. There's no money in it for the banks. If you cancel the fees for the debit card use, how do the banks make the money? This is money from the Treasury. So if there's no money that Goldman Sachs could make, if there's no money that J.P. Morgan can make, if there's no money that the payday lenders could make, if there's no money in it for the banks and the banks own our politicians, then the politicians are not going to put forth this law. But this is the exact type of legislation that should go out there. Immediate funding to Americans, I would say to undocumented people too, and it refilled for the duration of this crisis. And by the way, I don't think you could exactly put a specific end date on when the coronavirus ends, because in other countries, Japan is starting to see people that recovered start to get reinfected. So this is an illness that we're still learning about. We don't know how many people could possibly contract it again. They also say, well, we think that as the weather gets better, the virus is less lively. Well, that's a major we think. We don't know. Everybody is learning, including the health experts, are learning all of this on the fly. So technically, in the spring and the summer, should the virus be less lively and less contagious? Yes. But we don't know. We don't know. So, again, let me put that in the super chat if you want to read Rashida Tlaib's bill. I think it's a great bill. So let's get to Uncle Joe Biden, shall we? So, and we're going to get to Bernie too, because I got a lot to say on that score too. Uncle Joe Biden, okay? Whether we like it or not, at the moment, he is the Democratic frontrunner. If Bernie Sanders continues to not aggressively campaign, I would just call him the presumptive nominee, because Bernie is not aggressively campaigning at this point. I have things to say about that, but we're going to start with Joe Biden. Joe Biden came out on Tuesday after he won Arizona, Florida, Illinois. And by the way, for the record, I know this is going to upset a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there that are essentially saying Biden isn't really winning. The exit polls are showing it's all rigged, all these things. I have a little higher bar to reach because I'm a journalist, so I'm not going to just tell you that unless I could verify it. And from the research Jenn and I have done, particularly in Michigan, we have to do more research. The exit polls are out of the ordinary, but we do not think that Bernie is losing by 20 plus points because of exit polls, or Bernie is losing by 20 plus points because they're rigging the machines. We don't have any evidence for that. I would like it to be true, but I'm not going to irresponsibly just report that to stir controversy, stir sensationalism. So as of now, Bernie is losing because Bernie's losing. There's reasons for Bernie is losing, and I have a lot to show you in a little bit. But I don't think the machines are rigged. I don't have any evidence of that. And I don't think the exit polls are all totally skewed. In Michigan, for example, part of the reason the exit polls are so drastically different than the end results is because the exit polls did not take into account a 97% increase in absentee ballots. The exit polls do not take into account absentee ballots. They had a 97% increase in absentee ballots. So is there a lot of voter suppression going on? Absolutely. Hey, Mama Koo is here. Lori Sheridan. So you have to be nice to me. My mom's watching. But I'm not going to just say exit polls are are the reason that Bernie's losing. It's just we don't have evidence for that. But what we do have evidence for, let me tell you something. I mean, I've been following politics for a very long time. If you had a candidate that was if you have a candidate that their campaign, his or her campaign wasn't deathly afraid of putting in front of a camera for extended periods of time, if you had a candidate that was sharp cognitively, you cannot ask for a better opportunity than Donald Trump going in front of national cameras on a daily basis and destroying his presidency. You cannot ask for a better opportunity if you are a challenger to the incumbent president than Donald Trump being contradicted live by his own Corona czar, Dr. What's that short white guy? Dr. F starts with an F? Fauci. Donald Trump just went in front of national television and said, yeah, we got a vaccine that's close. And literally, Dr. Fauci had to go up to the microphone with Donald Trump behind him and be like, essentially saying, that's fake news. Like, didn't actually say fake news, but basically said, that's kind of anecdotal. We need evidence. We need testing. We need, you have to do trials and stuff like that. I mean, Donald Trump is a complete and epic disaster, not to mention, hey, Jordan, is your girlfriend still a Warren supporter? No, she's in full recovery. She is in full recovery. We had to put her in rehab. We took the remaining establishment out of her, and she is full on feeling the burn again. How are you feeling after rehab? Much better? Wonderful. Yes. No, my girlfriend's fully on the burn now. Bernie Sanders, that is. So, like, I can't think. Can you imagine if it was Barack Obama versus Donald Trump? Obama would be doing press conferences every single day, pointing out specifically, and I'm not an Obama major fan, specifically, every dangerous thing Donald Trump was saying, the fact that all of these deaths that are happening right now is because of Donald Trump, because he didn't take the advice of his health experts in January. He told them it was a hoax. This type of aggressive leadership on the Democratic end could actually reach some Trump supporters who, contrary to popular belief, also care about their lives and don't want their grandmas to die and don't want to die themselves. But somehow, the last Jen checked, the last time Joe Biden has publicly spoken was on Tuesday after he won these 3 states. By the way, after urging old people to go out and risk their lives for him. Shockingly, no one in the media has called Joe Biden out for basically telling people recklessly, if you're feeling healthy, go out and vote. If you're not showing symptoms, go out and vote. Even though this was completely against what the CDC said. In Florida, there were radio ads urging Floridians to go out and vote to, quote, continue the Obama legacy. Who lives in Florida? A lot of older people. So Joe Biden didn't care. And the last time he spoke, sorry, I don't have the clip up. Honestly, Jen, if you have that clip, can you send it to me? His wife had to come out and like hug him at the end because it looked like he just forgot what he was doing or where he was. I'm not trying to mock him, but at the end of his speech, he just stood there without saying anything, eyes like just staring off into the wander, and Joe Biden had to come out and hug him and kind of like pull him off stage. That was Tuesday. Joe Biden has not spoken publicly since. He did a call with the press on Friday, but it wasn't a press conference, and he hasn't done anything since then. And apparently, even though he's made from donors upwards of $25 million since Super Tuesday, apparently, with all that money, they still can't figure out the internet. Joe Biden says he's in the process of finding a way to directly answer questions every day on camera. I want to be in daily or at least significant contact with the American people and communicate what I would be doing and what I think we should be doing. Listen, I mean, Status Coup, we tried to get Jenn on via Skype. We were having tech problems, but I don't have $25 million to figure it out. Statuscoup.com/join. Get us closer. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. It's startling. And then you read this article that's written in Politico that's like almost like a ridiculous rationalization for the fact that the Democratic frontrunner, who right now has probably the easiest political layup that any challenger to an incumbent could ask for, a wildly mismanaged outbreak. The White House literally parading around CVS and Target and Quest Diagnostics to save us. Remember when Trump brought out all these corporate executives. We still don't have enough hospital beds. Literally, people are having to, barter masks. You have nurses in hospitals in New York and other places wearing the same mask all week and having to use hand sanitizer to sanitize those masks. But Joe Biden and the media that has been covering for him basically for a year now, they defend him. There's no playbook for this. Biden is trapped in campaign limbo. Joe Biden reached a new and heady milestone when he shellacked Bernie Sanders in Florida, Arizona, and Illinois to become the de facto Democratic nominee. But there was no soaring speech to acknowledge the moment. He never took the stage amid a sea of Biden signs or before an adoring crowd on national TV. Biden was instead stuck in a makeshift studio in his Delaware home, webcasting his remarks with a low-quality personal camera against a straight-out-of-YouTube black backdrop and 2 American flags. He warned about the coronavirus contagion. He offered an olive branch to Bernie Sanders. Then, despite 2 consecutive weeks of smashing victories, he all but disappeared from the news cycle for days. I just wonder why he's disappearing from the news cycle. The moment was a perfect distillation of Biden's current predicament. In a state of suspended political animation, trapped between a rival who refuses to quit and the global pandemic that has all but shut down the Democratic primary campaign. Because Sanders won't quit, Biden can't fully pivot to the general election? He can't truly unite the party's warring factions? Nor can he begin stockpiling the vast amounts of money he'll need for November. His momentum has effectively been stopped cold. Oh, let's blame Bernie that Biden hasn't woken up from his 5-day nap. A source familiar with the DNC's discussions say the party offered both Biden and Sanders campaigns the opportunity to open joint fundraising accounts. But since Sanders declined, the party is reluctant to enter into one with Biden because of the bad optics of seeming to help one candidate. Oh, now they care about the optics of helping one candidate. Not during the Iowa caucus app scandal. Not after President Obama basically forced everybody out of the field for Uncle Joe. Quote, that's going to eventually hurt Biden with financing if the DNC doesn't go ahead with this, the source said. Stuck at home because of the coronavirus precautions, Biden also can't meet with donors at fundraisers. Oh, terrible. Which in turn may become less lucrative with an economy that's sinking into recession or perhaps worse. It's a tough position, said Matt Littman, who's hosting a virtual fundraiser for Biden next month, that the candidate and the donors will attend through teleconferencing software. Quote, it's harder to raise money when there's no face-to-face meeting and the personal contact, Littman said. And some of the normal people I have to raise money from I can't count on. They have their own concerns. They have to keep their houses. The universe of people who will donate money will be smaller. For the foreseeable future, all live campaign events are canceled, so we can't hit the stump to try to capitalize on the excitement he had just stoked. His ability to criticize Trump on anything other than his performance on coronavirus response and preparedness is constrained by the emergency-like conditions. As new polling suggests that Trump's approval for responding to the virus is improving, some of Biden's fellow Democrats worry he's paralyzed himself. Quote, Biden is only in limbo if he keeps himself there. He's only in a predicament to the degree he chooses to view himself in one, said Jeff Hauser, a veteran of progressive politics who is head of the Revolving Door Project. Joe Biden can either complain about the fact that he's not getting significant media coverage, or he could do something to change that. He needs to offer an alternative and offer a running play-by-play critique of the failings of this administration. Then, the best part of this story. Meanwhile, his staff is scattered, communicating via teleconference, email, and conference call. Some remain holed up in Philadelphia apartments near campaign headquarters, but others went to Washington. A few are near the candidate in Wilmington, Delaware. Another is in the mountains of Puerto Rico. Their first step, installing a better video camera in Biden's house, which will soon have broadcast-ready capabilities and high-quality live streaming software. To limit the risk of infecting the candidate, the number of staffers is limited within the House. The campaign also plans to flood social media with Biden to promote the brand of the former vice president. Oh, I can't wait. Hold on. Lighting. Ceiling. I thought the story had something about that his ceilings aren't high enough. What's amazing about this, and I think somebody put this out there that really tells the whole story. Look at this. A source with knowledge of the campaign said Biden's team is working on scaling up the infrastructure and dealing with the realities of Biden's Wilmington home, like the fact that there aren't particularly high ceilings, which could make lighting a challenge. That's where lighting was. I give you the right. Fireside chat on important issues at home with Bernie Sanders and Fez Shakir. You could tune in to the live stream now. The live stream, I don't see really like super high ceilings in Bernie Sanders' house. Do you? The lighting, they're using a lamp on the ground. 2 lamps on the ground. His live stream looked just fine to me. Folks, let's call this what it is. Okay? Joe Biden's campaign doesn't want him in front of the camera reacting to Donald Trump on a day-to-day basis. It is laughable. It is laughable that the Democratic Party establishment, including Silicon Valley, which funds the Democratic Party establishment, in addition to big pharma, big banks, fossil fuels, big real estate, they haven't been able to figure out the tech in Joe Biden's home because the ceilings are too low and lighting is a challenge. That's why Joe Biden hasn't been going. Forget live. How about a few recorded videos a day? How about responding right after Donald Trump's press conferences? Give me a fucking break, okay? Give me a break. Here's an option, too. I don't know if they've thought about this. I assume Joe Biden might have a backyard.
In the midst of this national emergency, when suppose nobody is shocked that in this era of unfettered capitalism, that in the midst of this national emergency, when hundreds of thousands of people may die, we have corporations now lining up for their corporate welfare and their bailouts when they don't need it. It is incomprehensible and unspeakable that corporations now are taking advantage of this crisis in order to get tax breaks and subsidies that have nothing to do with the coronavirus. And the Congress must be very clear. No tax breaks, no subsidies to these corporations.
How did he do that? Wait a minute. How did Bernie Sanders do that? How did he get around the low ceilings? It's unbelievable. By the way, just for the record, Joe Biden's last public appearance was Tuesday after he won those states. Bernie Sanders has had public videos and live streams. He did one Tuesday. He did one Friday. And he's been doing videos like that. So put aside whether you're a Bernie supporter, whether you're a Biden supporter, Bernie Sanders is working with the same exact limitations as Joe Biden. I'm pretty sure Joe Biden's house in Vermont is in a towering mansion that has higher ceilings. So something doesn't smell right here. Something doesn't smell right here. And let me show you this clip. I didn't have it queued up when I was talking about it. Here is Biden's last talk on the night he won those elections. Tell me if something seems odd to you.
Hey. In times of crisis, Americans have always stepped up. We have to step up and care for one another. Thank you all. Thank you all for listening. Oh. Thanks. 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 Okay.
Laura, the Biden home is turning into a place for granddad. Okay.
Let's see if you can hear it now. Hold on. I think they should have heard it now. Yeah, now it's good. So, what's amazing about this? And, I don't know, maybe Joe Biden was standing there and the speech was over, so he just was standing there till people gave him the all clear. But I don't know, just to the naked eye, his wife looks like she came out to, save him. His wife looks like she came out to kind of get him off screen there. But I don't know. Call me crazy, but on a daily basis, if you are trying to exude, if you are the Democratic frontrunner and you are trying to exude a return to normalcy, and you are trying to exude that this man is going to get us all killed, talking about Trump, there is no technological errors. This idea of, he doesn't have the tech yet, they can't figure it out, the ceilings are too low, blah, 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 blah. Go in the fucking backyard. You could do a daily thing off your phone. Joe Biden could literally record him on the phone. People aren't looking for a 60 minutes production. They're looking for leadership, which tells me something doesn't smell right here. There's no reason that the front runner, the Democratic Party, against someone in terms of boxing, you have Trump on his heels. And why do you think Trump is going up in approval right now? Not because he's doing a good job. He's responsible for the fact that we are so unprepared. He called this a hoax in February. People are dying because Donald Trump did not take this seriously when his own advisors were telling him this is going to blow up. This, to me, is the equivalent of George W. Bush getting a memo, Osama bin Laden primed to strike, use airplanes as missiles, and he went, he said, thanks, I'm going to go out on the ranch, herd the cattle, W. Yes, I'm comparing it to that. And Joe Biden is nowhere to be found. They say he's going to give a speech tomorrow. Well, I've covered Joe Biden on the road. A lot of these are highly, highly controlled things, scripted down to a T. And if it's not live, we have no idea to know how much editing is going into this. If it's recorded videos, we don't know what are they editing out. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here, but we've seen enough from Joe Biden. From the stumbling through the Declaration of Independence, confusing his wife and sister, forgetting President Obama's name multiple times, telling his voters to vote on Super Thursday, confusing what years he was vice president. The list goes on and on and on. I personally think if I was Bernie's campaign, I'd have Bernie out there every single day filling that vacuum. Force the media to say, wait a minute, why is Bernie Sanders the one having roundtables right now? Why is that not Joe Biden? Why is Bernie Sanders the one proposing legislation? Why is that not Joe Biden? Why is Bernie Sanders the one doing all the national television interviews? I don't know why Bernie's not doing national television. He should be on the Sunday shows today. Biden wasn't. By the way, we got almost 1,000 viewers. Can I kindly ask you, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. We have an interview with the primary challenger to Debbie Wasserman Schultz coming up. And we have some other good stuff coming up this week, too. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join. We are now at 1,863 Status Coup members, I'd love to get more signups today. And we're going to have our members only call later this week, our video call just for members. So looking forward to that. So all of this craziness, and I want to get Jenn on this in a little bit. But first, I want to go through something that I just thought was the most insane article I've ever read from the New York Times. Even more ridiculous than the Russia fear-mongering against Bernie Sanders. Some of it is valid, but a lot of it was just complete bullshit. How it all came apart for Bernie Sanders. You know, because the blame game begins. And by the way, I don't think Bernie Sanders is going to win, but I also don't think it's over until he suspends his campaign. It ain't over. And I think Bernie Sanders is making a major mistake not going live every single day and not basically asking, where is the leadership from President Trump and where is the leadership from Joe Biden? So let's look at this, and I want to give you my thoughts, and I'll have Jenn get in here too. In mid-January, a few weeks after the Iowa caucus, Senator Bernie Sanders' pollster offered a stark prognosis for the campaign. Mr. Sanders was on track to finish strong in the first 3 nominating states, but Biden's powerful support from older African Americans could make him a resilient foe in South Carolina and beyond. The pollster, Ben Tolchin, in a meeting with campaign heads, recommended a new offensive to influence older black voters, according to three people briefed on his presentation. The data showed 2 clear vulnerabilities for Biden: his past support for overhauling Social Security and his authorship of a punitive criminal justice law in the 90s. But the suggestion was met with resistance. Some senior advisors argued that it wasn't worth diverting resources from Iowa and New Hampshire, people familiar with the campaign deliberations said. Others pressed Mr. Tolchin on what kind of message exactly would make voters rethink their support for the most loyal ally of the first black president. Crucially, and this right here is the most important thing, Bernie and his wife Jane consistently expressed reservations about going negative on Biden, preferring to stick with the left-wing policy message they have been pressing for 40 years. Right there, to me, and there's a lot of other reasons about how it came apart, right there was the main reason. I think the media was about 60% of it, and I think 40% of it was Bernie Sanders himself. The bottom line is Bernie Sanders, and this began in 2016 and continued now. Oh, we got the sex bots are out. Must mean we're doing something right. I don't know why we get so many sex bots in this live chat. It's crazy. Very crazy. Keep the super chats coming, by the way. So Bernie Sanders decided he's going to launch a revolution, but he's never going to throw any punches at his opponents. Barely threw any punches against Hillary Clinton. And honestly, the biggest punch he threw was in the last debate against Joe Biden, where he, to me, kind of passively aggressive, was like, wait a minute, Joe, you didn't stand on the Senate floor and call for cuts to Social Security? It was never direct. It was never assertive. It was never, frankly, just going for the jugular. And frankly, say what you want about Donald Trump. I wouldn't suggest you borrow any traits from him. But a big reason he won in 2016 is he just didn't give a fuck. He called them all corrupt. He named names. He called them puppets. And people responded to that. And frankly, this argument that, well, Democratic voters are different, they wouldn't like that. No, I don't think they are. I think people like a fighter. I think people like somebody willing to call it out. I think people, if you're going to ask people to get on this train with you for a radical change, you need to explain to them why this person is a threat. Not just read to me very academically about their votes, but why this person voted for those things, why they are corrupt. I think one of the turning points was Bernie's surrogate, Zephyr Teachout, wrote a piece in The Guardian calling Joe Biden corrupt. Bernie Sanders immediately clammed up and went on TV and said, or made a statement, basically denouncing his own surrogate and saying, I don't think Joe Biden's corrupt. Well, you're doing the Biden's campaigns, work for them. Bernie Sanders was never going to be the person willing to lead a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party. It's not the only reason he is not winning. It's not the only reason he's probably going to lose, but it's a big part of it. It's a big part of it. And by the way, I should have said this at the beginning, but we actually have a new text system, still working out the kinks. So you don't text 474747 anymore. Text 370-370. Text COUP to 370-370 to join our text list. For those of you that are already on our text list that have been calling in with the other number, don't worry about it. You're still grandfathered in. But for people who want to join our text list, which gets you a text message every time we're live, text COUP to 370-370. That's 370-370. Text coup. And by the way, just getting the breaking news that Senator Rand Paul has unfortunately tested positive for the coronavirus. So that is probably the highest named senator or politician so far to test positive for coronavirus. Mike Pence and his wife tested negative yesterday. So Bernie Sanders was just never willing to do what needed to be done. I don't think it's the only reason he lost, because what he was doing, we're all, we all are experts after the fact, but not a lot of people were criticizing Bernie when he was on 60 Minutes as the front runner like 30 days ago. Remember how quickly this all turned. Everybody was saying, oh, Bernie's doing the right thing, his campaign's doing the right thing, their organizing efforts are doing the right thing. He won Iowa, he won New Hampshire, he clobbered the competition in Nevada, he's got the wind behind his sails. So not everybody was playing armchair quarterback when Bernie was doing very well. But the problem is Bernie has what I think is a very admirable idea about politics. We're going to win on the issues, but also a highly naive idea about politics. You don't win in politics just based on the issues. If the American people were informed by the media, maybe you could win just on the issues. But because the American people are not informed, that's why we need a status coup in America. Thank you, Mr. Methuselah, $20 in the super chat. I agree, Jordan. You cannot win a brutal election by giving out roses and calling everyone my good friend. Bernie is too nice a guy, and nice guys finish last. Correct. And also part of it from the reports are Bernie and Jane happened to like Joe Biden and his wife. Joe Biden was kind to him in the Senate. Okay, that's fine, but you know who doesn't like Joe Biden? A lot of black people who are in jail that shouldn't be. You know who doesn't like Joe Biden? A lot of people who couldn't declare bankruptcy because of the bankruptcy bill he led. You know who doesn't like Joe Biden? A lot of people whose homes were foreclosed in because people like Joe Biden pushed for the repeal of Glass-Steagall, and as a result, the financial crash of 2008 happened. A lot of people in the Midwest might not like Joe Biden who had their jobs sent to China and Mexico. So maybe Biden was nice to you in the Senate, but that didn't extend to all the people that have been harmed by people like Joe Biden and their economic policies. So Bernie and Jane basically never allowed the campaign to go on an all-out assault on Joe Biden. The warnings about Mr. Biden proved prescient. 2 months later, Sanders is all but vanquished in the Democratic presidential race after Biden resurrected his campaign in South Carolina and built an overwhelming coalition of black voters and white moderates on Super Tuesday. While Mr. Sanders has not ended his bid, he has fallen far behind Mr. Biden in the delegate count and has taken to trumpeting his success in the battle of ideas rather than arguing he still has a path to the nomination. I remind you, over 50% of the country has not yet voted. His effort to regain traction has faltered in recent weeks as the coronavirus pandemic has frozen the campaign and perhaps heightened the appeal of Biden's safe and steady image. This is where I go back to what I was saying. Right now, Bernie has a massive opportunity. Biden is missing in action. The media will be forced to start wondering, where is Joe Biden if Bernie Sanders is front and center all over the place? Why he's not doing that, why his campaign is not doing that. It's both good politics and good for the situation. We need leadership right now. Donald Trump isn't offering that leadership. There is a huge vacuum of leadership right now, and Bernie Sanders and his campaign could be filling it. I'm not calling for them to do daily live streams and push people to go to BernieSanders.com and leave $10 or leave money. I'm not talking about him fundraising. I'm not talking about him talking about even the campaign, but just leading. Yes, he's done 2 live streams, a couple videos, but I say Bernie Sanders should be doing a daily live stream immediately in response after Donald Trump's press conferences. If Biden isn't going to do it, you have the opportunity to do it. And people are going to start wondering in those other states, shouldn't this be Joe Biden doing this? Bernie, have the national nurses part of your live streams if you could set up the tech. I just don't understand. I know some of you don't like me criticizing Bernie, but, we got to be real here. So I'm going to read a little bit more of this. In the view of some of Sanders' advisors, the candidate's abrupt decline was a result of unforeseeable and highly unlikely events. Most of all, the sudden withdrawal of 2 major candidates, Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg, who instantly threw their support to Mr. Biden and helped spur rapid coalescing of moderate support behind his campaign. Yeah, the New York Times kind of left out that Barack Obama was behind the whole thing. Mr. Sanders had been on the brink of winning, his pollster said, until the most unprecedented event in the history of presidential primaries occurred. But interviews with more than 3 dozen Sanders aides, elected officials, activists, and other people who worked with his campaign revealed a more extensive picture of his reversal of political fortune. Though Mr. Sanders climbed to a position of seeming dominance by mid-February, he and his inner circle also made a series of fateful decisions that left him ill-positioned to win over skeptical Democrats and sorely vulnerable to an opponent with Mr. Biden's strengths. Sanders proved unable to expand his base well beyond the left or to win over African Americans in meaningful numbers. He failed to heed warnings from traditional party leaders and even from within his campaign about the need to modulate his message and unify Democrats. He allowed internal arguments to fester within his campaign, an ungainly operation that fragmented into factions beneath the only 2 real decision makers, Sanders and his wife. Though outwardly amiable, Sanders' inner circle fractured between some long-serving counselors and relative newcomers, like Fez Shakir, his campaign manager. Mr. Shakir and others regarded pleas from Mr. Tolchin and other pugilistic aides, David Sirota, to go on the attack against Mr. Biden as both futile and annoyingly predictable, while Mr. Shakir's internal critics saw him as exceedingly territorial. So, I'm not going to read the rest because a lot of it is just kind of, Bernie not going on the offense, squabbling between the campaign. But to me, there is 2 major reasons. There's 2 major reasons that Bernie Sanders is probably not going to win the Democratic nomination. I hate to burst your bubble. I'd love to, toy with you and give you false hope, but I'm not going to do that. He's probably not going to win the nomination. It actually wouldn't surprise me if he suspends his campaign soon. To me, and Jen, do you mind calling me? I'd love to get you in on this. To me, the number one reason Bernie Sanders is not going to win has nothing to do with anything that was put in that article. The New York Times briefly touched on it in that article, but this is the real thing here. Mr. Biden's, after his South Carolina victory, Mr. Biden's incredible 72 hours between his victory in South Carolina and the first poll closings on Super Tuesday exerted a kind of gravitational pull rarely seen in politics. 3 opponents dropped out, Pete, Amy, and Tom Steyer, and then 3 rivals endorsed him in a dramatic fashion on Monday in Dallas, Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, and Beto O'Rourke. Hold on, Jen, I'm going to just read some of this. Political operatives marveled at the thoroughness and spread of his consolidation of support. Kevin Cattay, a former advisor to Tom Steyer, noted that the cumulative value of Mr. Biden's final 3 days of almost pure positive media coverage, that's an understatement. I would just say a giant super PAC in 3 days. Biden got a staggering amount of $72 million of essentially free advertising across the media. We're talking CNN, MSNBC, all the print outlets. $72 million in 3 days. Adding to that, add local media in those markets, and it easily tops $100 million worth of earned media in 72 hours. And this guy, Kevin Catte, is an advertising professional. So I don't know, Jen, you read the exit polls, if voters in those Super Tuesday states made their decisions, a lot of them, I think in some states it was 40 to 50% of voters decided in the final days before the campaign, before those Super Tuesday states, and you have over $100 million, according to advertising executives, in essentially a propaganda campaign. Does that possibly influence voters to think, oh yeah, Biden's the most electable now?
It absolutely does. People are really, as you know from the exit polls, really susceptible to changing their minds or making their minds up at the last minute. And people tend to vote for the person they think can win. So apart from those who were already decided that, Bernie is their guy or Biden's their guy, they're going to vote for who can win. And when that's all you see on the media, when that's all you see on the advertisements, I talked about this in Michigan, where you would see back-to-back Biden advertisements, one from Biden's campaign, then the next from a Super PAC, and then you go to the CNN report, and there's essentially another Biden advertisement in air quotes reporting. That's what people are going to do. They're there to vote for local elections. They're there for what they see as their duty, which is to vote, and they go ahead and check that bubble for Biden.
And, when you see on Twitter and these other places that people are criticizing Bernie Sanders supporters for pointing this out, saying he lost fair and square, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. I'm not saying this is the only reason he lost, but the bottom line is, corporate America and the establishment were literally about to wave the white flag. Bernie Sanders was on 60 Minutes 2 days before the South Carolina primary. He was in commanding lead. You had Joy Reid having coming to Jesus moments live on the air. You had Chris Matthews, would we be better off with Trump? Bernie Sanders, at that point, was the preemptive frontrunner for the Democratic, was the preemptive nominee. So, nobody then was talking about the problems with Bernie's campaign. Bernie's campaign is making mistakes on where they allot resources. He doesn't have a ground game, as some people have said in the media. He doesn't have this, he doesn't have that. Bernie was clicking all the right buttons then, but when you have between Pete and Amy about 15 to 20% of the primary vote, we're talking nationally, poof, gone in 3 days. And those people's votes are more moderate. And then you have a cheerleading campaign, a Super PAC, airing that whole speech. Biden, Buttigieg, Amy, Beto in Texas. They aired the whole thing. I would say when you then have, and let's get to, Elizabeth Warren here, when you then have, and part of this, let's be fair, part of this is on Bernie and his campaign. I don't know if they went out of their way to get her endorsement in those final days, or to get her out of the race. I've heard things, but, in that moment, if I'm Bernie Sanders, a lot of people watching wouldn't like it. I offer her to be my vice president. That's what I would have done. Progressives, you could be pure, but progressives have to start being cutthroat and serious about winning. And sometimes you have to make deals you don't want to do for the greater good. That's not selling out, that's trying to win. And I think, ooh, I pressed the wrong thing.
Hey,
Hold
it's
on.
Jordan, delighted to be joined.
I think Bernie Sanders should have gone all out to get Elizabeth Warren to drop out before Super Tuesday. It's not completely his fault. She obviously was being selfish, stubborn. I don't care if people call me sexist for saying that. It's the truth. But there was no response to that coordinated campaign, which was spearheaded by Obama, which the New York Times left out. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they kind of just let it happen. And we don't know what happened behind the scenes with Elizabeth Warren. I'm sure there will be a book or two about it later on, as there always are, the breakdowns from the campaign trail. But I think Bernie did not. It's from what it seems, Bernie did not try hard enough to win over Elizabeth Warren. And Elizabeth Warren, if she had any conviction and she stuck to her policies that she purported to support, her obvious pick would have been Bernie Sanders. But that hasn't happened. So you know what I think about her her conviction or complete lack thereof. So I think I definitely agree. Bernie didn't come out fighting hard enough. He didn't try hard enough. Not that he didn't try in the way that his focus is fighting for the people and fighting for the policy. This is all about policy for him. Sure, there has to be a little bit of, or maybe even a lot of ego for someone to run for president. But for him, it is all about the people. He's been fighting for this to empty rooms for decades. So for him, that's what it is all about. But he has not put on his boxing gloves. He hasn't been fighting in the way that you have to sometimes get a little bit dirty in politics. I'm not talking about getting dirty as far as losing your conviction or straying from who you are, but he needed to fight harder against these forces. So if he really wants these policies to be pushed through, and I know he does, he needed to try much, much harder to go after Joe Biden's faults, which are plentiful, to go after his policies. It doesn't mean attack. He can like Joe Biden as a person. With all those years in Senate, you do get to know people apart from their politics, and maybe he does really like him, and it seems he does. But that's what's more important is the policies and getting it through. What's more important than his friendship with Joe Biden are the people. And so it's baffling and it's maddening for me as a Bernie supporter personally that he didn't do that he didn't get a bit more cutthroat. He didn't have to get down and dirty as these other politicians do, but he could have focused on policy and taken Joe Biden down more than a few notches.
And I think also, I'm already seeing the comments in our super chat, you could have made that deal, Jordan, I wasn't gonna. I think honestly, this is the problem with the progressive movement right now. Listen, I'm very far left. So is Jenn. But at a certain point, you got to put your purity on pause if you want to win. There's a difference between totally selling out your convictions and making a deal that is not what we want to do, but is what you have to do to win, right? So there's a difference between, making a little deal, being for Medicare for all, and then whitewashing that and moonwalking away from it, which is what Elizabeth Warren did, because you're always going to do that and you're never going to fight for anything, right? There's a difference between that, which is not okay, and Bernie, in those final days where it was like an all-out assault with this one dropping out, that one dropping out, the media all behind you, of saying, you know what, screw it, be my vice president. Obviously, Bernie Sanders is still going to be running the show. Elizabeth Warren would be there as, frankly, to go after bankers, to do this, but Bernie Sanders would be calling the shots. But because the progressive movement and a lot of progressives think this way, in terms of, no, she's terrible, she's this, she's that, they don't see the bigger picture that we have to be cutthroat. We sometimes are going to have to make deals with devils to win, W-I-N. It's not selling out the policies, it's not selling out the ideology, but I think if Bernie Sanders would have done whatever the hell he had to do, and frankly, I didn't say this then because I didn't realize that this assault was going to do what it did. I didn't realize that all of these people dropping out, the media's campaign, this and that, Warren staying in, was going to cost Bernie to the degree it did. But looking back, honestly, if you gave me the choice between putting Elizabeth Warren on the ticket, whatever she wants, you want to be vice president, you want to be Treasury Secretary, whatever you want, versus where we are at now, it's not even close. You're not naming her president. But because so many progressives are in this Bernie or bust, pure till I die, never, blah, 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 they're not willing to, they'd rather to me, it's a subconscious thing, by the way. It's not like people wake up and say this to themselves. But subconsciously, people would rather lose 100% pure than do what they have to win. And it goes to the same thing with Bernie. He'd rather lose doing it the way he thinks it should be done, which is purely on policy. Let's not go for the jugular against Biden.
Right.
Then win.
I think. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think some of the things that we love so much about Bernie are also his biggest downfalls. We love that he's a good, pure guy who's been fighting for this for so long. We love that he's, the nation's grandpa, the nation's sane and together grandpa. But that niceness, and we know he can be, grumpy as well, or as that's what the media wants to paint him as. We know he can be gruff or whatever, but the people love him anyway. But the things that we love about him are probably what stops him from being that cutthroat. And it's disappointing. And I think we're seeing with Bernie that he's not going to, there are still things he could do to fight. There are still things he could do to continue to push the party in the direction that it needs to go. And I don't know if he's going to do that even at this point. Right now, to me, it seems like he's kind of staying in to be a voice, and a very much needed voice on the coronavirus, and to be someone for people to look to for direction in this time. We don't have Joe Biden doing it. We don't have Trump doing it. But I don't know campaign-wise if he's even going to do what he needs to do at this point.
And Kelly Elaine asked a good question. It's a fair question, too. What does going for the jugular mean, Jordan? I'll tell you what it means. There is not one other politician. I'm talking Kamala Harris if it was one-on-one against Biden. I'm talking Cory Booker if it was one-on-one against Joe Biden. Any of them. Barack Obama if it was one-on-one against Joe Biden. South Carolina would have been littered with ads about Joe Biden lying about being in civil rights sit-ins, Joe Biden lying about being arrested in apartheid South Africa, Joe Biden pound around with segregationist senators. There would have been ads about it. It would have been brought up in the debate, and that's the right thing. And by the way, it's not personally attacking someone. If somebody like Joe Biden is going to lie so breathlessly, so casually, then it is fair game to use that in a campaign. And you want to know something? Biden might have won South Carolina, even with all that. He wouldn't have won by 30 points, I can promise you that. Bernie Sanders, and by the way, I've spoken with people in his campaign that were pleading with Bernie Sanders to go on the offense about this. But he chose not to. You don't think that older African-American voters might have an issue with Joe Biden in black churches saying he, was marching to greet Nelson Mandela and just lying about that? The other things he lied about? That's what going for the jugular means. That you don't think, when you're talking about NAFTA, you don't just talk, he voted for these trade deals. You bring people on stage that have had their jobs sold to China. You bring people on stage that used to make $30 working at General Motors and are now working at this, my girlfriend and I watched this documentary last night about this Chinese factory in Ohio. What's that? American Factory on Netflix. People used to work $30 a month, part of the union at General Motors, their jobs sent to China and Mexico. Now they're working $12 an hour at this Chinese factory in Ohio that has terrible working conditions, this and that. He never went for the jugular in terms of this guy over here is not a middle class guy. This guy over here, it's not just that he voted for these things. He stands with the banks. He stands with these special interests. He is fooling you. He is lying to you. And I love Bernie Sanders. I love what you're talking about, the fact that he is, has a greater vision and doesn't like to do things that way. But unfortunately, that's a big way you win. And that's why he should have done these things. It's not the only reason he lost. I think the media is the bigger reason he lost. And there is an opposite end of that. We know if he went for the jugular like that, the media would be all over him. But frankly, the media was going to be all over him anyway. The media was going to go at him anyway. So I think he missed those opportunities. Maybe, you're a lot kinder than I am. Maybe you think that that's too far, but I don't. I think he should have done all those things and it would have made a difference.
No, I think it would be too far I sometimes try to imagine myself running for something, which I would never do. And it would be way too far for me. I just couldn't stomach it. I couldn't stomach being in politics, which is why, I kind of started out in the political world with Brand New Congress and Justice Dems, but that wasn't for me. The journalism side is. But for Bernie, that should be something he can stomach, and it seems that he can't. And I think you're right, going back to your previous point that I didn't yet acknowledge, which I think is really, really smart, is that people subconsciously would rather lose than to not be pure. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think people would never admit it, even to themselves, but there's this burn it all down mentality. Instead of having kind of a concession where Warren as VP to a Bernie Sanders president, people would rather burn it all down. They would rather continue to be angry at the politicians who are in power and continue to kind of grovel rather than focusing on the movement. And the movement is the not me, us. It's the fighting for Medicare for all. That's the ultimate goal, one of them, the Green New Deal. Those things have to come before being more comfortable with being angry at the system.
And people are saying it would have lost the general with Warren. You know what? To people who say that,
I don't think so.
I'd rather take the chance with him winning the nomination than the situation we're in now. So this notion of he would have lost, first of all, I don't think he would have lost because of Warren. He would be at the head of the ticket. And frankly, I think Warren, for all her faults, could demolish Mike Pence in a debate. But putting that aside, I mean, the bottom line is, I just think people, I'm not talking about our audience, I'm talking just progressives in general. People are rightly angry. People don't want to compromise. I get it. People are angry. People are hurting economically, socially. Minorities are hurting. Working people are hurting, and they don't want to compromise. They don't want to put people like Elizabeth Warren on the ticket who have no conviction. But the bottom line is, the establishment is in power. All of these Neanderthals pretending to be public servants are in power because they aren't pure, because they do make deals. And we have to start doing what we need to be done. It doesn't mean that if Bernie won with Elizabeth Warren as vice president, I say put her where Selena Myers was in the HBO series Veep. Put her in another building, have her go to all the funerals. I'm not saying give her real power, but you have to do what you have to do to win. And I don't think Bernie, let me tell you something, Kelly Elaine and those folks, I can tell you, because I cover politics and I travel, the majority of African Americans in South Carolina and other states have not a clue that Joe Biden has lied about probably 40 to 50% of his civil rights history. Not a clue.
Yeah, no, they have absolutely no idea. I think people in general have no clue, and that's the fault of our media, which is another reason why someone like Bernie Sanders needs to speak out about these things so that people learn about them.
Right. So the last thing I'll say, and again, we don't want to, because, I support Bernie personally. I'm being critical because I think there are things to be critical about. But I don't really think the strategic errors that the New York Times is pointing out is what, he put too much emphasis into Iowa, New Hampshire, didn't allot enough resources to South Carolina. I don't think that's that, because frankly, after Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, I mean, nobody was saying, he didn't put enough resources into South Carolina, right? Putting the resources into the first three states, I think, was the right decision. And frankly, I think that, there was an unprecedented scam in Iowa. The victory there was taken away from him. The normal momentum that he would have gotten was taken away from him. I think his campaign probably should have filed massive numbers of lawsuits. They chose not to. So people say in the live chat, why are we dwelling on the past? Because if you don't figure out what you're doing wrong, and it's not the past, it just happened, you're never going to correct it. The progressive movement is never going to correct it. And frankly, to me, I think the Nina Turner mentality is how progressives are actually going to win. Because that New York Times story pointed out Nina was trying to plead with Bernie, go for the jugular. Senator Sanders, Nina Turner is a very, very inspirational person, but she also knows how to throw a punch. And progressives are not going to win if they aren't willing to throw a punch. This idea, Ocasio-Cortez, there's reports going out there that she's more pragmatic, and her idea is like, if Warren isn't going to endorse you or she's not going to do what you want, be conciliatory. Try to understand why they won't. I don't agree with that shit. I mean, there's making deals, and then there's, wrongly thinking, if Bernie would have just made some more calls to the establishment, if he would have, what do they say, courted the establishment more. No, there's a large number of politicians. It doesn't matter if Bernie Sanders would have baptized their kid. They're not going to support Bernie Sanders because their donors won't allow them to. But I do think in terms of campaigning, we need progressives that are willing to go for the jugular, are not going to call the opponent my friend, and will do what needs to be done. And I think Bernie Sanders has done an amazing job. The country altogether has moved left. He has set the stage for the future generation of the progressive movement. But there was limitations to what he was willing to do. And we're seeing it right now. I mean, I don't know what you think, but I don't know why Bernie's campaign, and again, when I say Bernie's campaign, it's not fair to his campaign because Bernie makes the ultimate decision. So even if his campaign was telling him to do all the things we're talking about, if he's not willing to do them, so be it. But I don't know why Bernie's not every day being the de facto response to Donald Trump. Sure, the DNC wouldn't like it. Sure, the Biden campaign wouldn't like it. But if Biden's not willing to do it, if he can't figure out the tech and the ceilings are too low, isn't that a great opportunity to step in the vacuum with 50% of the states still left to vote if you're choosing to stay in the race?
Well, I think he kind of is. I guess you're saying he should do more. He should do more live streams. He's been sending out a variety of responses to Trump through email and things like that. But you're completely correct that there is a huge vacuum out there and that people need it filled. Biden, instead of, I don't remember if you mentioned, but while Biden's been missing, he has done virtual fundraisers.
Yes.
One of them that so far, I believe there are more scheduled.
So the ceilings aren't too hot. The ceilings aren't too high for the rich people.
Right. The ceilings are just fine as long as you have $2,800, apparently.
Right. It's unbelievable. And final thoughts before we move on to my interview with Jenn Pearlman, who's running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Jenn, is there any reason that more people watching should sign up? I know they're mad at me for criticizing Bernie, but is there a reason people should sign up to statuscoup.com/join as Status Coup members urgently?
Yes. So let me address the fact that no one should be mad at anyone for criticizing Bernie in good faith. Like, we're not saying Bernie's bad, Bernie's policies are bad. We are people who are frustrated and see some opportunities that he should have taken that he didn't. And I think maybe Nina Turner will take that baton and run with it in the future here. We'll have to see what happens. But people can have differences of opinion. That's one thing that gets me in the progressive movement is people write others off just because they disagree. And that's, I think, not how we win. So it's okay that we disagree. It's okay that we have different thoughts. As far as joining Status Coup as a member, get ready, guys. We think it is imminent, this big story that we've been talking about. We don't have a set date at this time, but things are happening. We're in the last stages here. So if you want the behind the scenes of all the things that we have dealt with, we've had this story since October. If it were up to us completely, we would have had this out in late October, to be completely honest with you. But we're dealing with another outlet, an outlet that can get this out to many, many more people. So if you want the behind the scenes of everything that we've kind of dealt with in the background, additional reporting that they cut There are many layers of editors and things like that. So we'll talk about, the juice and the meat of the story we're really, really happy with. But of course, there are other things that if we had 100% control, things like that. So if you want that behind the scenes, if you want behind the scenes video diaries on this, behind the scenes pictures, behind the scenes frustrations, behind the scenes joys, if you want to know everything, the blood, sweat, and tears that went into this story, join at statuscoup.com/join. For as low as $5, you can get this juicy scoop.
And some people are asking, what are you talking about? Because maybe people started watching recently.
People might be new. So we're working on a story we can't quite tell you everything about yet, but it is an incredibly major story. We have information we are definitely not supposed to have about some very, very powerful people. That's really all we can say. This is one of the biggest scandals for many decades. I don't know, Jordan, you want to talk more about as much as we can say?
It has to do with Flint. I've told the audience that much. People say, "Damn, this has been dragging on." Well, that's why you should. That's why you should become a member. Statuscoup.com/join. Because once the story is out, we're gonna let it rip. Why this has been dragging on. All I could say is, I've been to Flint 15 times. Jen, I think you've been there 5-6 times.
No, I've been there 8 times, I think.
Okay, 8 times. Pretty much everything we've done in the last 4 years. This is kind of a buildup of that, a accumulation of all the reporting we've done, all the blood, sweat, and tears. Obviously, it's not about us, but, when you stay on a story and you build the relationships, you build the sources, you build the knowledge that Jen and I both have on this story, eventually staying on a story, and that's what real investigative reporting is, you don't just immediately topple the house. You don't just immediately find where all the bodies are buried. You don't just immediately find out what happened for every story. It takes time and people to trust you. But we came across some information at the end of about last fall that is truly, I don't really get shocked at corruption because I've seen pretty much all of it. This shocked me. And it continues to shock me. And, Jen and I have been going back and forth this weekend. We're both kind of writing out questions for when we reach out for comment to specific people for this story. As I write these questions, and Jen, as you read these questions, I'm just like, wow, I can't believe these fucking people and the corruption involved with this story. So all we could say is we know that we've been teasing it for a while. We were actually told it would have been out in December. So we started teasing it because we were told by the outlet we're working for this story that this was going to be out at the end of last year. But right now, it's basically the editing is done, and now there's just some final crossing your X's and O's, or however that phrase is. So we appreciate you guys waiting. I think you guys are going to be really proud to be members. So statuscoup.com/join. We are 137 members away. And I think, Jen, from a membership point of view, people might be wondering, well, why should I sign up as a member? There's a pandemic. It's not like you're traveling anywhere. It's not like Status Coup is like the lights are out. Like, we're still reporting. It still costs money to do all this. We want to keep building so we could hire additional reporters, hire additional staff for when we get the all clear that we could travel again. So I hope people know, like, we still need to grow, right, Jen?
Yeah, we absolutely still need to grow. We have additional equipment needs for when we are back in the field, but also for at home. As you may have seen today, we were not able to get me coming in via Skype because Jordan needs a new computer, most likely. We've been talking to Colin about that in the background. So we have additional needs. We want to keep reporting. We need to completely revamp our website, which is a mess, to put it mildly. So we have needs, even though we're not in the field. And as soon as it is safe to do so, which nobody knows when that will be, we will, of course, be back in the field. In the meantime, we're doing distance interviews and things like that, the giving the microphone back to the people that you guys know and love. But you also get all of the backlog of video diaries and behind-the-scenes photos and behind-the-scenes videos and everything that's already been posted since Status Coup started. So that's a huge amount of content, plus everything that's yet to come, plus monthly member calls, plus we have exciting news coming up that we'll be doing members-only podcasts. We haven't decided on the frequency yet, but that's additional members-only content. So the entire archive or backlog or whatever you want to call it, plus everything that's yet to come for as low as $5 a month. So you can cancel at any time. You're not locked in or anything for the rest of your life. It's easy to cancel on your own. So statuscoup.com/join, and just think about all of the content you get, and also think about the fact that you are supporting true independent media. We tell you the truth, and we don't just report nonsense. We don't just report rumor. When you come to us, you know that we have vetted something. If we do make a mistake, we correct it. We are true journalists. We aren't just, reporting whatever comes our way as other people are. We aren't selling out to the establishment as other people have done. I think we're extremely unique in the world of the web. Kudos to a lot of other independent journalists who we love and who we know. But Status Coup has carved out its own space. We are really, truly unique. So join us for just $5 a month and help keep us going. statuscoup.com/join.
And by the way, Jen, I'm just letting you know that I'm going to ask Colin to rewatch this live stream and find the 3 or 4 instances where you said, Jordan, you're right. I completely agree. And I'm just going to have that ready to go.
Play it on loop for all those times when I tell you you're wrong.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. So, we still got 700 people watching. I got an interview to air. She is the challenger to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Jenn Pearlman, down in South Florida. We've been talking about Bernie's campaign, but also, how do progressive candidates on a local and congressional level, how do they compete in uphill campaigns when you can't campaign, you can't leave your house? So we're going to air that right now. This is Jenn Pearlman. She is a progressive in South Florida. She's challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz. You all know Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Keep the super chats coming. Keep the membership signups coming. Robert Coplin, $5 in the super chat. I want more people to join Status Coup as I want to hear more stories, and that takes money for equipment and hiring more staff. Robert, your check is in the mail. That's exactly what we need. Keep signing up. statuscoup.com/join. $5 a month. You could help fund this reporting. Here is my interview with Jenn Pearlman. Hey, it's Jordan. Delighted to be joined by Jenn Pearlman. She is running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz down there in South Florida. And a lot of people have been seeing these ridiculous views of people, at the beach, certainly no social distancing, spring breakers. It looks like your governor, Ron DeSantis, is slowly starting to drop the boom, but not really, fast enough. And I don't believe I've heard anything from Debbie Wasserman Schultz as far as leadership on, getting immediate cash assistance to people, paid sick leave, those kinds of things. So first, before we get to your campaign, what is going on in Florida? I know that a lot of young people might not realize this virus can affect you, but it seems like a lot of people in your neck of the woods feel like this is just something passing them by.
Yeah, which is interesting considering the amount of the elderly population that we have down here. I mean, I know my parents are basically quarantined themselves. So, there are some people that are being very safe. But, spring break is spring break. When we were that age, I don't know how much we would have listened. And yeah, they're being irresponsible. But my understanding is that Governor DeSantis shut down Broward and Palm Beach. So the beaches are you can't get to them unless you live there. And I think as of tonight, there is a ban on public places. I saw gyms, bowling alleys, movie theaters, any enclosed spaces that are, high volume places are going to be closed.
Okay. And I was seeing on Twitter that the Biden campaign even on Tuesday, there was like radio ads, like get out and vote to continue the Obama legacy. Call me kind of, I don't know, cynical, but isn't that kind of just telling older people to go out and risk their lives to vote for your campaign?
Yeah, just a complete thoughtlessness and lack of consideration. And that just really, it's, you're talking about someone that's out of touch with his own age group. Like that's just, it's crazy. But yeah, and we were out at the polls here wearing gloves and just handing out literature to other people wearing gloves and being as careful as possible. But it was definitely lower turnout than normal. Even though, but truthfully, a lot of older people here vote absentee or early. So a lot of people have already voted as of Tuesday.
Right.
But there's no doubt this is suppressing voters.
Yeah. And for you, I mean, upstart campaign, you're running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Obviously, Tim Canova took 2 cracks at that. Older district, but it happens to be a lot of Jewish people too. You're a Jewish woman, so you have that. They might give you a look. And also, honestly, she's been there forever, but hasn't really done anything. The reason she keeps getting elected is just like people are familiar with her. Before this, were you seeing, your message breaking through at all with those kind of traditional Democratic voters that tend to vote for her? And how has this affected the campaign?
Well, it's definitely grounded us. I mean, and not in a good way, but our message resonates with everybody that I have an opportunity really to speak with very few exceptions, and that being people that know her personally, or city commission people, or people that just won't say anything publicly. But for the most part, when I talk to people, even people that have liked Debbie in the past, I get a lot of comments of, "Oh, she's been there a long time. It's time for her to go." And those are some of the not as mean comments as I get from people really about her. So yeah, we're definitely having trouble, with this in terms of not being able to canvass. That's definitely going to hurt us. We're doing other things to reach people. We're phone calling and we're sending out postcards and we're doing other things, but it's definitely going to be hard. It's definitely adding another hurdle to jump through to reach people. But I think that there are definitely some of her people that feel comfortable with me, even though it's something different, but it's not that different. It's still, you've got the nice Jewish girl, same age approximately, it's not too crazy. But for the most part, we're reaching voters that were never her voters in the first place.
And it's interesting because I remember covering Canova's campaign in 2016, large, pretty significant Latino population. There are younger people there. But the lifeblood would be door knocking. So everyone's been focusing on what is Bernie going to do to continue, but local campaigns, what do? Do you set up Zoom calls? I really don't know. What can you do to keep exposure and getting your message out?
We're learning as we're going. I don't know that anybody could really have foreseen this as being something that we would be contending with. And just this afternoon, all of my BNC slate mates and we had a big conference call, and there was a lot of brainstorming and a lot of ideas of things that we can do that are outside the box that can help us, now. But we're doing everything we can. We're still phone banking, we're texting, we're emailing, we're social media. Being stir crazy, I've been, dropping some videos. I've got, I was thinking I would show off my penguin collection tomorrow and do a diversion. I don't know. So, we're just trying to come up with as many ideas as we can, but I don't think anybody had the playbook for this.
And how, once it's okay to door knock and those things, who knows when that's going to be, how do you feel this presents an opportunity? Obviously, you'd rather it not be through this, but I think a lot of people, including older people, are starting to see wait a minute, why aren't some of these gaping holes that we're finding out exist because of coronavirus and this crisis? Why do they exist? Why don't we automatically have, some form of paid sick leave or, direct cash payments? Do you think that the traditional Democratic voter might be open to that message now that they're seeing it, even for themselves?
Yes, everybody becomes a socialist in the times of an emergency. That's just how it works. But yeah, I've been talking about this since over a week ago when our rally for Fight for 15 was canceled, and I was supposed to speak at this rally with the union. And I'm thinking, okay, so people that can't even get a minimum wage now, they don't have health care, they can't get tested, they don't get sick leave, and they're preparing your food. So it's really unbelievable that how basic that seems, and yet we're fighting for these basic things. So I do think this is an opportunity, and I've been harping on it for at least a week. Just that alone. Just you see, if we had health care and paid sick leave at the same time, we could be having a lot better control of this situation.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, it's definitely an information opportunity.
And also, one thing that I found ridiculous, and frankly, I think Bernie missed an opportunity, was when Biden during the debate said, well, look at Italy, they have single payer. How's that working out for them? Well, first of all, Italy has 60 million people. We have 330 million. And secondly, it's not a matter of universal health care versus not. They didn't shut down the country early enough. And frankly, we're the ones relying on Quest Diagnostics and CVS and Target and corporate, capitalists to save us. You got New York City saying they're going to run out of hospital equipment in 3 weeks. Other places saying we don't have enough ventilators. This is capitalism. So to you, does that possibly become an argument to talk about a more universal healthcare program in your campaign?
Oh, yeah, I see so many things to talk about with this. I mean, not just single payer healthcare, but when people try to compare to failures in other systems, it's interesting because it's really more about the resources. When people say you have to wait for things, not when you have the resources. The wait is connected to the amount of resources. It has nothing to do with who the payer is. I don't even understand what that connection is anyway. But this is also an opportunity for us to talk about some of the horrible trade deals that we've done over the years and why we don't make anything here anymore. So, for example, masks and gloves and respirators and all sorts of things that are now made in other places, and we are just not self-sufficient. So I see there's a myriad of educational opportunities with this that hopefully we will be able to really, lack of a better word, capitalize on and, get people to see that there could be a better situation.
And I also think, you're right in the eye of the inferno. I don't even call it climate crisis anymore. I call it the inferno. If we don't start acting aggressively right now, Green New Deal, once the climate refugees come, there's no such thing as social distancing when the planet's on fire. There's no such thing as stay inside. You could still get flooded if you lock your door. So it seems to me with the climate, I'm not minimizing what we're going through right now, but that could be an even bigger pandemic that doesn't have an end date.
It is, and it doesn't. I mean, it's inevitable. I mean, you can look at where I'm sitting will most likely be the next Atlantis at some point. But I mean, what amazes me is how they're still continuing to overbuild as if that's not happening. It's really interesting, and how people are willing to do that, and how are we going to have clean drinking water? I mean, these are all things that I definitely have concerns about. And to some extent, I don't know if there's one answer, but to not sign on to a manifesto that says this needs to be the priority that it needs to be, I just don't even understand that, which is if you don't support the Green New Deal, then you have no vision. You have no commitment to anything better, because it isn't even specific policy. It's just saying we're having a situation and we need to do more. If you can't get behind that, you're not on our same team, as Joe Rogan would say.
And let's talk about your opponent. I'm sure Debbie Wasserman Schultz is out in the streets right now, passing out hand sanitizer, masks, leading the troops on this crisis. Not just her, but the Democratic Party. Nancy Pelosi is hemming and hawing. We need to make this relief targeted and all this stuff.
And where is Joe Biden? Where is he?
Taking a nap, my sources tell me. So what is Debbie Wasserman Schultz offering in forms of leadership for your district down there?
I haven't seen or heard anything from her. I haven't even gotten an email. So, and I'm just speaking as a constituent. So, I haven't seen anything from her. But I haven't really seen, other than Bernie, I haven't seen anything from any of them. So they just don't seem to have a response. I think maybe they think if they quarantine us, then they could sort of hide away as well. Maybe. I don't know what their plan is.
Well, isn't there a basic conflict of interest if the real response is calling on corporate responsibility and corporate citizenship here? Offer your workers paid sick leave. We will give relief to small businesses, but big business, you could afford the stock buyback, so you could afford to close down and pay your workers. Isn't there a conflict of interest if you as a party are funded by those corporations? You can't really bite the hand that feeds you.
Well, that's the appearance of impropriety that they all have. I mean, that's what we live with, and I've actually had a political person, a local politician down here actually tell me, well, just because you take money from someone doesn't mean you're going to do what they want you to do. And that is true, technically, but then you would have one term and they wouldn't give you more money. And the appearance of impropriety is just not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. So, yeah, I think there's a huge conflict of interest with our Congress people in general. I mean, just this thing with them all like divesting of their stocks a couple months ago, knowing this was coming. That's, they're not going to be able to build moats wide enough at some point. That's what I think is going to happen here.
Mm-hmm. And also, as far as I know, unless she's changed, I doubt it, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not for Medicare for all. She's not for a Green New Deal. She takes a lot of money from Wall Street, big sugar down there. So she's up, she's been kind of made a backbencher a little bit after her, total corruption of 2016. But as far as your district down there, it seems like it could benefit from some new leadership because, as far as I know, Florida's got a lot of people struggling. South Florida, has a lot of retirees, but also have a lot of working class people that are, working more than one job. A lot of young people, and like we talked about, the bullseye of the climate crisis.
Yeah, we have income inequality here is definitely big. I mean, we're on the farther end of the spectrum. I believe we're in the top few cities, and Broward County has a huge affordable housing problem. And the McDonald's rally that I was supposed to go to, they make $8.25 an hour, and that's in Fort Lauderdale. So, I mean, it's just completely crazy. So, I mean, we have a lot of big issues down here. I haven't seen her really doing anything about that. I really haven't. The only thing I ever see her doing or coming out on is gun control. That's her, her special thing. But no, I haven't seen anything from them. And she doesn't support Medicare for all. She doesn't support a Green New Deal. I know that because members of our progressive caucus went and made appointments and to talk to her about supporting Medicare for all. She absolutely does not. And she does take money from companies that give an appearance of impropriety with regard to that lack of support. So, I mean, maybe she just doesn't think everybody's entitled to health care. I don't know. Maybe it's because she takes money from private insurance companies. I don't know. What I know is that most people want it, and she's not doing it. That's what I know.
And most people in Florida, which is, like other states, kind of puzzling because you look at Bernie versus Biden, all these states, even the ones that are going for Biden, the voters are overwhelmingly, I think in Florida the other day was 57%, said they want Medicare for all, yet somehow we can't pay for it, but we can pay for this emergency. So it seems, they're talking at
But we could bail out certain people from this emergency.
Right.
We can afford to help certain people. See, anybody, to me, if you've got shareholders and you've been doing stock buybacks and everything you're doing to manipulate the system, you are not the people that we should be bailing out. That's just, to me, that's just common sense. So, I mean, we need to have, I have an argument for UBI anyway. Like, I think it's a good idea anyway. So, if this makes people realize that, then great. I haven't seen Debbie say one way or the other on the UBI.
I think I could guess where she stands on that one. Where can people find out more about your campaign? Hopefully, you can find some creative ways. I still think getting rid of Debbie Wasserman Schultz would be a big victory for the progressive movement. So where do people go?
Okay, so we really need help. We need phone bankers, especially now. So even people, if you don't have money to donate, we need volunteers. So go to Jenn2020.com. We are at Jenn 2020 on Facebook. And we are Jenn FL23 on Twitter and Instagram.
Are we one N or two N's?
One N.
Okay.
One N. So Jenn 2020, one N, Jenn FL 23, one N. And we need help. So anybody who can even just be a small monthly donor and I feel horrible even asking for money during this but you know, we got to hope, and this is what we were talking about in my BNC meeting, that people see that even though this is a horrible time, the only way out of this is to get things like Medicare for all and get these things out there by people who can't be bought by the system. So, you know, even though I hate asking for money, we need money, but we need phone bankers too.
Got it. All right. I will be in touch. Follow your campaign. Hopefully I can get down there before the primary, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thanks, Jordan.
No problem. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.
Status Coup.
That was Jenn Pearlman running there in Florida's 23rd district against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I'll put her website one more time if you want to check out more information on her campaign. Appreciate her taking some time. I would love, obviously, once the virus and we got the all clear, I went down there in 2016 to cover Tim Canova challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz. If we had the funding, hint, hint, I'd love to go cover her campaign against Debbie Wasserman Schultz because, listen, as much as we're on the ropes here and aren't feeling great about Bernie, we still gotta get progressives on the local level, progressive campaigns, more exposure. So that's what Status Coup is here to do. We would love to cover her campaign and other progressive challengers in the field. So sign up, statuscoup.com/join. I would think we got a new member during that interview. Let me see. Yes. Welcome, new member Christine. Woohoo! So we're now at 1,864 members. 1,864. Maybe we could get to 1,870 before I sign off. I got one more story to do, and then we're going to do a quick Q&A. I'm going to play this interview, if you want to call it an interview, Jake Tupperware did on CNN this morning with the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. Just watch this clip. It's not long. Tell me if something's missing.
You issued a stay-at-home order for the entire state of Illinois. It took effect last night. You're one of 5 states now to do that. Your neighboring states have not issued such an order, Wisconsin, Indiana, et cetera. Will your order work if other states are not doing the same?
Look, these orders that the governors have led on, I led with, canceling gatherings of a certain size in our state, and then we closed schools. We've moved on now to a stay-at-home order. These should have been done nationally. They haven't been. But I've got to protect the 12.7 million people that live in my state. And I'm, dedicated to that. It's their health and safety that matters most to me. It will work. It will work. Remember, people are interacting every day in every way possible. And unless we tell people to stay home and to stop interacting in the way that they were, we're going to see more and more, thousands more, tens of thousands of more deaths than we otherwise would. So that's why I had to take the action that I did. I don't relish it. Frankly, this is a competition, in the decision-making between saving lives and saving livelihoods. And I've had to make some tough decisions here, but I believe this is the right thing to do.
Well, let's talk about how to save the people or help the people whose livelihoods are being threatened right now, scrambling to pay.
So Jake Tapper interviews the governor of Illinois, who just declared a stay-at-home order. 3 days before he declared a stay-at-home order, he allowed the primary in Illinois to go on. Jake Tapper doesn't ask him, well, what exactly changed between Tuesday, where you allowed the primary to go on, and Friday, where you declared a stay-at-home order statewide. Tuesday, let's have all people go out, stand in line to vote. Friday, stay at home. You know what happened between Tuesday and Friday? He had the National Guard came into Illinois the day after the primary. You think as a journalist, maybe it would be kind of important to say, well, do you regret allowing the primary to go on Tuesday, since obviously the situation was pretty dire if the National Guard had to come in there like less than 24 hours after the primary on Tuesday? You endorsed Joe Biden on Monday? Not trying to say, the governor of Illinois is a complete craven sociopath who, in support of Joe Biden, who he endorsed the day before the primary, allowed the primary to go on and risk his constituents' lives in the service of Joe Biden's campaign. I'm not trying to say that, but you know. But no, let's just have him on, pretend that there wasn't a primary now 5 days ago, but pretend that, when that governor said, I've had to make tough decisions. Well, I don't know, if I'm a journalist, well, Governor, can you tell us about that tough decision of allowing the primary to go on where you risked the lives of God knows how many senior citizens that went to the polling places in Illinois? God knows how many younger people who we're seeing can get sick from this and can die? How is it that on Tuesday you couldn't see that people needed to be sheltered in place? Friday you figured it out. Was it way less dangerous 3 days before? By the way, this isn't only him. You got the governor of Florida allowed these primaries to go on. The governor of Arizona allowed these primaries on. Only a Republican in Ohio had the sense to postpone the primaries. But because we don't have actual journalists in this country anymore, Jake Tupperware had him on and just made him look like this, visionary leader who had to make tough decisions. Nauseating, I say. Just nauseating. And another story I was going to end, but Jen just reminded me I wanted to cover this. This is also nauseating. I mean, Elizabeth Warren was dead to me long ago, but now she's dead, and I'm not going to visit her graveyard. Politically, I don't wish her. So, Elizabeth, I'm going to run my entire campaign against super PACs and then have a super PAC in the final stretch there. The donors who funded her super PAC were just disclosed. Ooh, it's a doozy here. Former President candidate Warren's biggest political donor to her super PAC was recently revealed to also have given a substantial amount in donations to a major political ally of President Trump. According to Shane Goldmacher, national reporter for the New York Times, recent filings show that Warren's Persist PAC was almost entirely funded by Silicon Valley megadonor Carla Jurvetson. In total, Jurvetson donated a mammoth $14.6 million to support Warren's campaign. This is the same Carla Jurvetson, by the way, that gave a massive donation to the DNC earlier in the campaign cycle, which allowed Elizabeth Warren to gain access to the voter file data. So Jurvetson gave $14 million to Elizabeth Warren's super PAC. She mainly supported Democratic candidates such as Warren. She also gave another large contribution to the tune of $2.7 million to the 2018 Senate run of former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Woo! Man, that is strange. That is a strange political mind there. Support Sheriff Joe. Round him up, Sheriff Joe in Arizona. At the same time, support Elizabeth Warren. Arpaio, an outspoken Trump supporter, has been one of the most vilified figures on the left due to his tough stance on immigration. He has been the subject of multiple civil rights lawsuits after being accused of racial profiling and abuse of power. Arpaio also earned contempt of court conviction, though he was later pardoned by President Trump. Moreover, Warren has previously spoken harshly about Arpaio, even releasing a statement on her website in 2017 after news of his pardon. Quote, speaking of making America less safe, President Trump and Sheriff Joe are two of a kind. Both believe the law doesn't apply to them and have used their office to create a platform for racism and bigotry. No one, not Trump and not Arpaio, is above the law. So, yeah. Pretty much her whole super PAC was funded by Carla Jurvetson, who happens to be the ex-wife of a massive Silicon Valley billionaire. I forget who she was married to. I've seen some profiles of her. Generally, she supports female candidates. I think she's given money to Kirsten Gillibrand and others. But she's given money to a highly, highly racist, highly fascist, xenophobic Sheriff Joe. In fairness to Elizabeth Warren, I don't know if she knew everybody that was funding that super PAC. My assumption is she knew. I don't know if she knew that Carla Jurvetson had given money to Sheriff Joe. But it just shows you, with super PACs, there's nobody really that clean donating millions and millions of dollars to super PACs. You know, when the media and Biden tried to make it seem like, Bernie, you have a super PAC, and they were classifying like Sunrise Movement as a super PAC, Our Revolution as a super PAC, National Nurses United as a super PAC. It's a joke. You know who funds National Nurses Super PAC? The nurses, not Carla Jurvetson. You know who funds Our Revolution? The largest contribution they had last year was $25,000. Hardly corruption. And whoever gave that $25,000 to Our Revolution, info@statuscoup.com if you want to talk. But for you, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member. Become a member, please. statuscoup.com/join. $5 a month. Her former husband, Stephen Jurvetson, is an American business and venture capitalist, formerly a partner of the firm Draper Fisher Jurvetson. He was an early investor in Hotmail, Memphis Meats, Mythic, and Nirvana. He is currently a board member of SpaceX and Tesla, among others. He later co-founded the firm Future Ventures with Mariana Sanko, who worked with him at DFJ. DFJ was an early financial backer of Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. Oh, God. You remember Theranos? Who Joe Biden, by the way, supported. That blood-sucking corporation. There's a great documentary on Theranos, I think on HBO. So, Elizabeth Warren, you didn't need this particularly to show that, the emperor has no clothes. But the emperor has no clothes. And I will say this. I don't have the clip up. It's not even worth it. When she was on The View this week and they challenged her on why have you still not endorsed? I mean, it's just, I don't know who gives Elizabeth Warren political advice. I don't know who Elizabeth Warren's North Star is on politics. I don't know if it's just her who decides these things, but she has the worst, other than Hillary Clinton, she has the worst political instincts I have ever seen. At this point, just endorse Biden and put us out of our misery, okay? Have some spine. If she decides to run for Senate again in 2024, I'm a journalist, but I will be covering whoever is her primary challenger, and I will go up there for that to Massachusetts. She needs to be primaried. She needs to be gone. And see, that's why I was saying earlier, we can't be progressively pure. We could believe these things, but I still say it would have been smart for Bernie to say, screw it, be my vice president, stem the momentum that Biden had with Pete, Amy dropping out, everybody coalescing. If Warren would have came out and supported him in those hours, it would have neutralized the media momentum Biden had. It would have rallied, yes, progressives. A lot of progressives wouldn't have been happy, but it would have given Bernie a victory in the news cycle. But that doesn't mean we have to like Warren. But sometimes progressives need to pause the purity and do some things we don't want to do to win. When you win, then we lead the charge against the oligarchy. Paul, you have held up, Jordan, you have held up your integrity so well. I try. It's not easy, but I try. It's a lot easier, by the way, especially, it's also a lot more financially tantalizing from a journalist, from a media point of view, to toss away your integrity, to rant, the exit polls, to scream, burn it all down, to, basically, I mean, there's people that were going around saying like, oh, for clicks, saying, oh, Bernie, Tulsi offered Bernie an endorsement, but Bernie refused it. No facts, no nothing, just we're doing live streams about that. I actually wait and try to dig into things. I contacted a source that I trust. They told me this is nonsense, this never happened. And what do you know, Tulsi just came out last night and said that's not true. Jen, if you have that tweet to put in the super chat, apparently Tulsi's brother, who was upset, said that Tulsi posted on Facebook that Tulsi offered Bernie an endorsement and he refused. I don't know Tulsi's brother. I'm not criticizing him. I think he was upset in the moment that his sister was being criticized, endorsing Biden, and made a comment that didn't actually happen because Tulsi did not offer to endorse Bernie Sanders. I said, just from a common sense point of view, that makes no sense. Why would Bernie Sanders, who's on his heels, why would he refuse an endorsement, especially from Tulsi Gabbard? That's ridiculous. So it would be a lot more financially beneficial for me to toss integrity and facts to the side and just be a sensationalist like a lot of people on YouTube are. I choose not to do that. Jen chooses not to do that. And in the grand scheme, I think having some journalistic standards and integrity will help us build for the long term. And that's what we're going for here, the long term. So, before I end, maybe we can get a little lightning round, a couple member sign-ups, shall we say? We're now at 1,864. 1,864 members. I think we could get a couple more member sign-ups. Jen just sent me what I was waiting for. Let's show you, for those of you that didn't see this. This is from a journalist, Fiorella, who I think does the Convo Couch. So, here's the comment. Your brother claimed you were seeking to endorse Senator Sanders, yet he had declined your endorsement. Is this true? Tulsi Gabbard responded, false. So, I don't know. What do you want? And then I think her brother came out. I don't know if you have that, Jen. Her brother came out and said, I was just upset in the moment. I don't have information. I didn't have that information, blah, 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 blah. Oh, here it is. Aloha, friends. I was really angry and reacted to a very hateful post about my sister. I was speculating and shouldn't have reacted the way I did. I have never been part of Tulsi's campaign. I'm not privy to what's actually happening. I'm just a protective older brother with a big mouth. Please forgive me, blah, 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 blah. So don't hold it against him. Just a brother trying to, stand up for his sister who was being attacked for supporting Biden, But this is the problem with YouTube sometimes. People run with things and report it as fact. I have looked in, by the way, to the exit polls. Jen is looking into the exit poll discrepancies. I wish I could just tell you it's all been robbed. These numbers aren't real. The machines are rigged. But I'm not going to just say things unless I have proof. Doesn't mean we're not looking into it. We've been juggling a major story we're working on with the day-to-day news. But I don't think that's why Bernie is losing. I don't think there's a grand conspiracy and that's why Bernie's losing. There is discrepancy in the exit polls, but like I said, in Michigan in particular, the exit polls did not take into account that there was a 97% increase in absentee ballots. And the absentee ballots broke for Biden in a big way. So, and by the way, exit polls are not even, Jen could explain this better than me, they're not an exact science either. There's errors in exit polling too. The main thing going on here is the incessant voter suppression. If Latinos didn't have to wait online for 7 hours in Texas, if college students didn't have to wait online for 5-6 hours in Michigan and other places, you'd see the gap closed. But the truth is, we're still not seeing young people coming out in the same numbers as older people. That's just the truth. Younger people, once they start coming out in closer numbers, these gaps could be closed. So, let me end with a little Q&A for those of you. Keep signing up, statuscoup.com/join. Anat wants to cheer, so do I. Yes, there are people against Bernie, absolutely. Henry, my brother said a lot of people don't want to answer exit polls. That's correct too. Electronic tampering in Illinois, how the barcodes can switch votes easily. I'm not saying there's not a risk of that. I'm just saying I cannot report those things without facts. Other people do say things without facts. I can't. About Jordan, Michigan, people didn't get a chance to go out. Don't forget what we was in a crisis. I've already said that you could come out or you can't come out on now. I don't quite understand what you're talking about. You were in a crisis. You're talking about Corona at that point? Yeah. People, I think there was a little bit of a turnout depression, but coronavirus there wasn't like shelter at home things on the day of the Michigan primary. Listen, Rebecca, you know what I think happened? Everything I've talked about throughout this live stream. The entire media was a super PAC for Biden. I don't think Bernie made the case effectively enough. He barely mentioned TPP during his speeches in Michigan. He barely mentioned TPP during the debates. It's not just that he voted for NAFTA. It's that he was literally pushing the TPP as recently as 2017. Last year, he wouldn't say whether he was for TPP or not. He's going to sign TPP if he's elected president. Jordan, you know what? I love you and respect you, but we as American people are not dumb. The whole entire election was rigged against burning from the beginning. That was all planned. Let's not be dumb. Rebecca, there's a difference between rigged in the ways I'm talking about, the media, what happened in Iowa, and the machines are manually manipulating numbers and changing the numbers. The exit poll, that is different than what we're talking about. The media, absolutely. The Democratic Party rigging it against Bernie, absolutely. The app scandal in Iowa, which Bernie's campaign should have sued 7 Ways to Sunday on, yes. But I don't have proof that the machines are being manipulated. I don't have proof that these exit polls, if there wasn't an exit poll discrepancy, Bernie would have won. Jameson Doan, $5. Jordan, exit polls are the UN standard for determining election fraud. They are the most accurate science when it comes to polling. I agree. But my point is, for example, in Michigan, and Jenn has looked into this very scrupulously, and we are reaching out to the person that people have been citing, Michigan's exit polls did not, absentee ballots did not factor into Michigan's exit polls. The absentee ballots were 97% increase from 2016. That's all I'm saying. So there is a difference. If the exit polls do not include a 97% increase in absentee ballots, then yeah, the exit poll is going to have a discrepancy from the final results. The final results are wider because there was a massive increase in absentee ballots, which the exit poll did not take into account. I don't know how else to explain it. Nobody was talking about machines being rigged when Bernie won Iowa, when Bernie won New Hampshire, and when Bernie clobbered in Nevada, right? So we can't just scream the machines are rigged and all this stuff when the results don't go our way. And by the way, I've spoken with Tim Canova. I know what he says about all this. You got to provide proof. I think he was robbed in 2016. Moreover, the exit poll discrepancies have been 8 to 12%, which is 4 to 6 times the 2% standard for election fraud. Absentee ballots can't explain that. Jameson, what I'm trying to tell you, I'm not agreeing that there's nothing to look at. I'm saying there is no proof, P-R-O-O-F, that the numbers are being changed from Bernie to Biden. That is what I'm saying. And somebody pointed out, if I had a bigger staff, yes, we would investigate it 24/7, but I don't have that staff, unfortunately. Kelly, New Hampshire wasn't a caucus. And just because it's a caucus doesn't mean the numbers can't be manipulated there. I think the machines weren't used in Nevada or Iowa, dude. Do you think numbers are only manipulated in machines? You don't think they're manipulated any other way? All I'm saying, I mean, as a journalist, I can't just report something if there's no proof. So I looked at Michigan in particular. I will look at the other states. The other thing also is, the sources that people have been citing, it's this one site that people have been citing. I believe Jenn reached out to that person because we wanted to speak to them. You also have to take into account exit polls itself are very similar to polls. They are a smaller sample size of the broader electorate. Most exit polls are about 600 to 1,000 voters. So there are places, the UN has said anything above 2% could indicate election fraud. It doesn't mean, yes, it's election fraud. A lot of exit polls themselves have small sample sizes. But what I am telling you, I also look at the exit polls, the questioning. When you look at Michigan, Biden was significantly ahead of Bernie in terms of who people trust in a crisis. He was significantly ahead of Bernie in terms of who people thought was the strongest candidate to go up against Donald Trump. You can't ignore that. And also, this number is staggering, folks. People are ignoring this number. But this tells a story in Michigan. There were a lot more voters age 50 and over than under the age of 50. Biden cleaned up over 50, and that was a larger percentage of the vote in Michigan over the age of 50. So if you only have 7% age 18 to 24, if you only have 8% age 25 to 29, 40 to 49 isn't all Bernie. The gap starts getting closed between 40 and 49. So if more older people are coming out to vote than younger people, yes, the lines are a problem at these colleges. Probably a lot of younger people get off those lines because nobody wants to wait for 3 hours. But the point is, it is not up for debate that older people are coming out in higher numbers than younger people. That's just the facts. Yes, JK, that is my point. I think Jordan's point is that it looks suspicious, but he can't prove the machines were rigged to flip votes. Jenn, if you'd like to call in one last time, because I know you have some insight into exit polls and are a little smarter than I on the exit poll point. Because I just don't want to tell people stuff that I can't back up just because it would make them feel better. I don't think that's the role of a journalist. Maybe the role of a commentator, maybe somebody who doesn't have a bar to meet. And I'm not saying it doesn't look suspicious, but looking suspicious isn't the same thing as being able to prove things. To me, a bigger problem and a bigger election fraud is the use of provisional ballots. I think Bernie Sanders probably won California by 15 to 20 points. The delegate gap between Bernie and Biden, if Bernie would have won California by 15 to 20 points, this election would still be a lot closer, even with Biden's other victories. Jordan, interview Greg Palast. I interviewed him in California when I was there. Jenn, save me on the exit polls.
What's that?
Save me on the exit polls so people understand what I'm trying to say, because you explained it very well to me.
Yeah, so I think the first point is, whoever made that last comment is, yes, it's possible that something is very, very wrong. Things do look suspicious, but the key word there is possible. We just don't have any proof right now of anything, any votes by machine or whatever getting physically changed. We can't report things that aren't true. We can report things look suspicious. We can report the media bias. We can report the things that are visible and just concretely true. And I think people are getting upset because this, for whatever reason, this one website, what is it? I don't even remember. It's like TMDS. Yeah. If everyone is citing this one website, we can't just go to one website where the guy doesn't state his credentials and doesn't state who he is and just start reporting that as fact. I know a lot of people in the independent space have done that. And that's one of the, obviously we're huge proponents of independent media, but you also have to remember anyone can get on the internet and say whatever they want to say. And they can acquire an audience doing just that. And many have, especially when you are able to kind of incite anger in a crowd of passionate people. That gets you a lot of clicks. So all Jordan is saying is we can't report what we don't have facts for. So as far as exit polls are concerned on their own, yes, the UN uses them as a standard. Unfortunately, we're down to one official exit polling company, Edison, and their method for tallying exit polls of voters that don't come in physically to vote on election day is calling, like normal polling, like they do beforehand. So if people say those aren't legit, which we do, we say there's a lot of problems with polling in general, with primary polling, with general election polling, with all polling. There are design issues, methodology issues, severe issues. And I don't want to put myself out there as an expert, which is why we are reaching out to experts on this issue, because we simply can't say, okay, we don't trust this one type of polling, but all of a sudden we trust this other type of polling where they've only asked 600 people and there's only one company doing it, and the methodology isn't so great, but all of a sudden that's the gold standard. No, it can't work both ways. I know exit polling is different than regular election polling, but the methodology of getting those absentee and early voting voters is the same. So I think everyone just calm down. Exit polls have changed a lot over the years. They're not what they used to be. And honestly, everyone's citing that the UN will come in or whatever it is if the exit polls are 2% off from the actual results. Well, clearly that's not the case because they haven't done so. It doesn't mean they shouldn't. It doesn't mean there's nothing wrong, and that's not what we are saying. What we are saying is we just don't know, and we're not going to report something to you that we don't know about just because it'll get us clicks and money. That's not what we're about.
And somebody said, then find the proof. There's more than enough evidence out there. Well, if you would fund us to hire 10 more people, researchers, get Jenn and my plate a little less full, then we could hunt down these things night and day. But Jenn and I are both doing the job of 17 people right now, so we unfortunately don't have the time to go through every hole and cave out there. We try, though. And the other
for sure. I don't think people realize how much, we would have to spend so much time on this, specifically analyzing and comparing exit polling. And one thing that people don't bring up either is that the margin of error works both ways. So if the margin of error is plus, or if Bernie's at a certain number, let's say 20, but it's plus or minus 5, that can go up or down, and so does the other person's. So there's so much that goes into this. I see people in the chat saying, well, XYZ did a segment on the exit polls. I know a lot of independent journalists did,
and a lot of them have been wrong. I mean, I don't know what else to say. A lot of them, and I've watched some of them, their facts are wrong. I'm not going to put anyone on blast, but their facts are wrong. And I don't know what else to say. I mean, I've seen some people that I really respect. It's not that I think they are purposely trying to mislead people, but, this is complicated stuff. Not everybody, even people that are explaining it, truly understand it. So,
right. I certainly don't. Like, I'm telling you up front, I am not an expert on this. That's why we are reaching out to experts, which is journalistically what we are, the responsible thing.
And I also think that people saying there's proof, there's this and that, are still ignoring the biggest reason that Joe Biden is winning. Okay? Put aside the exit polls for a second. Every one of these states that Joe Biden has been winning, the difference between the amount of people the age of 50 and older that are coming out versus the amount of people, let's say 40 and under, I mean, it's a massive difference in terms of older people coming out to vote versus younger people. So, yeah, that can't be rigged. The older people, I know this is not a general statement because there's a lot of older progressives out there that support Bernie, but by and large, the majority of people over the age of 50 support the likes of Biden, Hillary, and the whole establishment gang. So, the machines can't rig the fact that more young people, age 18 to 29, are not coming out. They might be coming to the rallies, but for whatever reason, that's not always converting to the voting day. Of course, there is roadblocks, the long lines at these colleges. But you saw in Michigan, we were reporting on that day, within the last 24 hours, like that day, people were registering from the colleges. So this is a problem where older people are the most reliable voters, where younger people are not. So that does, people just want to scream, oh, well, on paper, the exit polls, there's this huge discrepancy and the UN says this. But the UN, it doesn't mean, just because they say anything past 2%, it doesn't say that means it's election fraud. It means it could be election fraud, right? And, I mean, I know people in Bernie Sanders' campaign. If there was really something there, I actually think they would go public with it and fight it. I think the more fraudulent thing, Jen, I'd love to know what you think, is the use of provisional ballots that aren't being counted. California, honestly, screwed Bernie. Other than Iowa, I don't know any place that screwed Bernie more. They were using provisional ballots, conditional ballots, new machines in Los Angeles. I think Bernie probably won California by 15 to 20 points, which honestly would have neutralized Biden's gains on Super Tuesday. He still would have had a better night than Bernie, but not by a lot, because that was the biggest prize. And if Bernie won by 15 to 20 points, he's going to clean up delegates. So, I mean, Greg Palast says millions of votes were thrown out in 2016 because of provisional ballots. Probably going to have similar numbers thrown out this year in California. All I'm saying is we'll look into it. It's kind of hard to look into everything. As a journalistic network, if you only have two people and one is doing all the marketing, all the logistics, all the behind the scenes, and reporting, and I'm doing a lot of reporting, we're both working on a massive story that hopefully comes out this week. We could only do so much, folks. So for the folks that say, then find the proof. Well, why don't you do your part, statuscoup.com/join, so we can get some more staff. But all I'll say is, listen, I'd love to tell you I think there's some conspiracy going on. The machines are changing the numbers, all this stuff. I just don't think that's the case. I think this is the attack, what do they call, the Empire Strikes Back. I think this is the Boomers Strike Back. The Boomers are coming out. There's more. They've come out. I think Obama pulling the strings to clear the field. Remember, if that didn't happen, we would not even be having this discussion right now. Okay, so I mean, I don't know what else. I don't know what else to tell you. Were the machines rigged in California? He won. Were they rigged in Utah? He won. Were they rigged in Colorado? He won. Were they rigged in Florida? No. There's just a hell of a lot more old people in Florida. And frankly, I don't mind that Bernie made the Cuba comments, but that kind of killed him in Florida. Because old people are old people, and a lot of them buy into this socialism nonsense. So I think as the progressive movement, you're kind of sabotaging yourself if you're going to, unless you have proof. And by the way, it's not so easy to find out if machines are manually changing numbers. You would need to find like legitimate whistleblowers who work for these companies. It's not so easy to find that out. Somebody said, then find it. So anyway, did I miss anything, Jen?
No, I think I just want to point out that it is psychologically comforting for people to look to conspiracy, to look to something like machines actually changing votes. It's disappointing. I've said it over and over. I am personally a strong Bernie Sanders supporter. I am very far left. It's really discouraging what's happening right now. And if it's true, if psychologically, if someone says to themselves, "Oh, it's true, the votes are getting changed," that's more psychologically comforting than realizing that Bernie is just not winning.
Right. And somebody said Rivka Rebecca Shaloma. Love that name. Jordan and Jenn, was 2006 rigged? 2016 was rigged, even when Elizabeth Warren said, what do you have to say about that? Okay, Rivka, and people watching, let me be clear, because I think you guys are confusing what we're saying. I'm absolutely saying it's rigged.
Yes.
It is rigged.
It's rigged.
There's a difference between rigged and provable fraud. It's rigged when the entire media is a super PAC for the Democratic establishment. It's rigged when an app company that literally was funded, had a financial relationship with Hillary Clinton's campaign, Pete Buttigieg's current campaign, and the DNC. That is fraud. The Iowa app scandal is fraud, 100%. Okay? To me, it's rigged when California is tossing out millions of ballots, citing its provisional ballots, and in this case, conditional ballots. We're not saying it's not rigged. I just did a whole hour on all the ways the media rigged the election. So I'm not saying this was a fair fight and Bernie is losing. That's not what we're saying. If anything, if you watch Status Coup, we've been saying the opposite the whole time. My point is, as journalists, rigged in terms of the whole Democratic apparatus, the whole Democratic establishment, the DNC, yes, it's rigged. But provable, like the machines are manually changing the numbers to benefit Biden, or like the exit poll discrepancies prove the numbers are being changed, I can't prove that. Jenn can't prove that. And as such, we're not going to run with it. And we'll let other channels run with that, and they could get their clicks, and they could grow their subscribers, but we're not going to do that. We're not attacking them. That's their choice if they want to do that. But if I can't prove something, I'm not going to run with it. And I always make clear when I'm speculating on something, I'm not reporting on it, I'm just speculating. I don't have facts, but sometimes I give my opinion and I speculate, and that's it. Lori, sorry I missed your super chat. Put it in again. Write your comment and I'll read it now. And by the way, somebody mentioned Colorado. Colorado was a primary this year. It wasn't a caucus, so there were machines. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Colorado was a primary, not a caucus this year. So, anyway, Jenn.
Yeah,
I will say, Jenn.
Yeah. Yes.
Once this massive story that we're releasing, I hope this week, is off our plate, statuscoup.com/join, we're going to have a lot more time to sink into. I mean, I don't really think people are not going to realize until this story comes out just the sheer Herculean reporting effort this took. You guys have no idea how many hours and days and weeks and months have gone into this one story. I mean, it is pretty much, other than live streams in the campaign, totally monopolized our time. And I think it's worth it once you see the story. So, anyway.
It's very worth it.
Last thing, Jenn?
Well, I was still back on the election. Someone had pointed out that the Gray Zone and Code Pink are demanding that the Organization of American States come in. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that too, just so people know. We know that the Gray Zone and Code Pink have started that effort.
Right. And also, I think another thing people aren't talking about, we wouldn't even be having these conversations about exit polls if Elizabeth Warren wasn't in the race. Bernie would have won Massachusetts on Super Tuesday if she would have dropped out. He probably would have won Minnesota. Texas probably goes to Bernie Sanders if Elizabeth Warren was out and endorsed Bernie Sanders. So I'm not blaming the whole thing on Elizabeth Warren. I'd love to. But my point is, we can't just say things because it's not working out on our end. Elizabeth Warren basically split the progressive vote on Super Tuesday. She literally cost Bernie Sanders states. Bernie Sanders probably gets most of Elizabeth Warren's vote in California. I would venture to guess most of it in Massachusetts. Texas, Bernie lost by 3 points. Elizabeth Warren, I think, had 10 or 11% there. Yes, not every one of her voters would have went to Bernie, but by the numbers, her voters' top second choice was Bernie Sanders. Definitely would have been Bernie Sanders with a strong endorsement from Elizabeth Warren. So don't forget that it could have 100% gone a different way, and we wouldn't be having these discussions about Michigan and exit poll discrepancies, because Elizabeth Warren staying in the race, selfishly as she did, cost Bernie Sanders several states. It also cost him larger margins in the states he did win. I think he would have won Massachusetts. I think he would have won Minnesota. I think he would have won California bigger. And a lot of these states, by the way, Washington State is one of them, for example, there was mail-in ballots, so a lot of people started voting even before Joe Biden's victory in South Carolina, right? So there's a lot of factors other than just the exit polls on the night of the Michigan primary. That's it.
Yeah. Also, Rivka said, Rivka, I assure you, Jordan was not, I think you misunderstood what Jordan was saying. Rivka said, Jordan, please don't take offense and tell us that people that work for Bernie's campaign and bust our ass that we need to get our clicks from somewhere else. I was on South Carolina and North Carolina grounds. I think you misunderstood. So Rivka, please don't be offended or whatever. Jordan's not talking about you with clicks at all.
Oh, no, I'm talking about people with YouTube channels.
Yes, YouTube channels.
I'm not talking about Bernie supporters. I'm talking, because there's a lot of Bernie supporters that truly believe this and have been talking about it, and I'm not knocking them, because why? You guys obviously have some suspicion. I think it looks suspicious. We're not saying there's nothing to look at. We're saying we can't prove it. I'm talking about people with large YouTube platforms, not just YouTube, but people with platforms in other places that are just running with something with no proof. That's what I'm talking about. And of course, it's difficult to prove certain things. So I'm not saying it should be illegal to say, hey, this looks fishy. But there's a difference in saying something looks fishy and saying with certitude, this is what's happening. That's what I'm thinking. And by the way, I was on the ground in South Carolina. I was pointing out the fact that they were closing down polling places and not telling anyone before the campaign. The fact that people were going to polling places and it was moved and they didn't even give you the new address. So it's not like we on the ground aren't reporting when things are fishy. But listen, Biden won South Carolina because older black people love Barack Obama, and benefit of the doubt, Biden was Obama's man. That's why he won. And because Bernie didn't aggressively go after Biden for all his civil rights lies. That's why he won South Carolina. That's just the truth. That's why he won Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas, and all the southern states. That's the truth. That's in Michigan. He won black people there because the media doesn't inform people, and Bernie's campaign didn't go aggressively enough against him. And also, Bernie would have trouble going against him on the crime bill because remember, Bernie voted for the crime bill too. At least he's since then said it was a mistake, unlike Biden. But there's other factors here. That's all we're saying. So.
Yes, of course. And guys, if you want to send us information that you see, send us please good information, not just conspiracy theories or whatever. And when I say conspiracy theory, things can be a conspiracy and still be true. So just send us information that you vetted, because then we can then vet it in our process or whatever.
Speaking of,
very much open to having people send us information. So if you are finding election issues, we want to know about it. So email us at info@statuscoup.com.
Speaking of, Jen, with people stuck at home, maybe we should do a full live stream just on JFK's assassination.
Oh my gosh, let's do it.
Because Jen is the ultimate.
That would make me so happy.
Conspiracy theory. I don't even think it's a conspiracy theory. CIA,
No,
obviously.
it's not. And that's the thing. People, when you say the word conspiracy theory, because this is the CIA's goal, is to paint the word conspiracy as automatically untrue. But that's not the case.
And Lori says, I missed her super chat, so I'm reading. Due to corp media and Trump derangement syndrome, a virtual corpse is beating a great left populace with an energized base. Couldn't agree with you more, Lori. A virtual corpse is beating an energized base. And by the way, when that virtual corpse loses to Donald Trump, if he makes it that far, I'm readying my I told you so's. I'm saving my tweets. I literally have a folder just saving my tweets to blast out when Joe Biden loses. And we're going to say, you guys helped cover up for a whatever is going on with Joe Biden, a clearly impaired candidate, to stop a working class president. That's what happened here. So, all right. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
All right, folks. Signing off. We've done, I think, 3 or 4 hours here. Remember, even if we don't agree on every issue, we agree on one thing. We need a status quo in this country. If this 2020 campaign hasn't shown you, the media is the ultimate super PAC. The media is the ultimate form of election rigging. That is why we want to grow. We're not just trying to grow so like Jen and I could become millionaires here. That's not going to happen. Status quo is not like trying to be BuzzFeed. We're trying to grow so we can expand operations. There's a lot on my plate. There's a lot on Jen's plate. So if you have just $5 a month, we think it's best spent here. Statuscoup.com/join. Sign up as a member. If you can't sign up, we get it. These are tough times. People are worried about meeting their financial obligations. If you can't sign up, just spread the coup. Spread the word. Tell people about Status Coup. Thank you for watching on this Sunday. Still ending strong, 500 viewers. Not easy to keep an audience for hours and hours and hours. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys will sign up. And we'll be live tomorrow, 4:30 Eastern Time. That's 1:30 Pacific. Peace out.